Hello and welcome back to the Golden Fanfics. I hope you enjoyed today's very special video, What If Deku Was a Villain Part 2. Made by the mysterious Banana Dot, and the story will be linked in the description like always. So leave a like, subscribe, and comment for another part. Now let's get into the fanfic. Chapter 9. Bonus chapter. People ran rampant across the street, fleeing in panic, like ants abandoning their anthill during a flood. At the source of all this, cars were sent flying, laying waste to nearby civilians. While illegal usage of quirks were a common event, something of this scale was rarely seen, and as the police forces sent in to suppress the assailant, calls of reinforcements were made, as the numbers dropped like flies. An warning was issued around the city block. It was a villain attack. A certain crystallization quirk user had just smashed open a limousine, and the man inside was running out, attempting to head to safety. Suddenly, the crystalline golem of a man grabbed the guy by the neck and stared him down the face. "Remember me? Yashi?" he asked with a gravelly voice. The face attempted to decipher who he was, no clue. No. But if it's money you want, I can give you some," he replied with a fearful tone. The man seemed pissed off towards his attitude, which tightened the grip, squeezing blood out of his mouth. "Oh, so you don't remember me, huh? Does employee of the MONTH ring a bell?" the man yelled at him. "Hey Koyama. Oh my god. Listen. If it's about your daughter, my daughter's dead. And quit the act, I know you're not sorry," yelled Koyama. "All you had to do was pay my daughter's medical bill when your car crashed into mine. But no. You insisted that it was my quirk activating when I tried to protect her that broke her spine." The golem continued to tighten his grip. "You then fired me. You're filing a lawsuit against you and losing. I lost my job, my daughter, wife, even the house. All those years of work, and for what?" "Stop right there, villain," cried a familiar voice. It was Kamui Wood, the pro hero with a wood quirk. Reaching out with his wooden vines, he stunned the villain, forcing him to let go of the hostage. With the villain stunned and unable to move, Kamui turned around to bask in the glory of success as civilians rushed in to take pictures of his success. Just then, we hear the villain mumble something in the back. "Alright, just like the kid said," he whispered to himself, reverting back to a humanoid form to escape the entanglement. Kamui noticed him escaping and charged towards him to knock him out. Suddenly, Koyama punched the limousine's gas tank, spraying gasoline all over Kamui Wood right before he could reach him. "Ugh. It got into my mask," Kamui yelled as he tried to wipe off the gasoline. Koyama took this opportunity to pull out a lighter, which Kamui saw out of the corner of his eye. Kamui pupils dilated as the lit lighter was thrown at him, setting him ablaze. The hero squirmed in pain as the villain reformed into the crystal golem form he was in and pounded Kamui to the ground with a barrage of fists. "And pause," said Nezu, pausing the recording right as Koyama's fist met Kamui's face, before turning towards the large group of pro heroes sitting at the round table, whom he was showing the recording to. The heroes at the meeting cringed at the sight of Kamui's face caving in. Nexus got off the booster seat that allowed him to reach the screen in the first place and turned to the group. "This is just one of the many cases of a hero losing because of their quirk's weakness getting exploited," explained Nezu. "There are many other examples. Jet, Stan Star, Fourth Kind, L'Oreal, and even Sirius were recently hospitalized due to the same reasons. Out of these heroes, 3 of them quit afterwards, traumatized. They just got cocky," said Endeavor. "So why are you telling us this?" Midnight gave Endeavor a mean glare. "L'Oreal was a former third year from Yuuei. I trained him personally and called him my #1 pupil with pride," explained Midnight. "Those were not the only heroes that were beaten by villains," explained 13. "A recent graduate from Ketsubutsu Academy was killed in action in front of my own eyes." Several heroes turned to him. "So you knew," they yelled in unison. 13 nodded. "I've hardly seen many pro heroes lose to common thugs, but the thugs that time were clever. They used mirrors to use my partner's light beam quirk against him. I thought of it as a tragedy. I was unaware such things were happening of such a large scale," explained 13. "What seems to be the cause of it?" asked Best Jeanist. "That's what I came here to discuss about," explained Nezu. "Whoever is behind this, he must have some sort of connection to us heroes, meaning we might be dealing with a new powerful enemy here." "Are there any connections with the villains who beat the heroes?" asked Aizawa. "None that we know of, hence confirming that we aren't dealing with an organized group. Rather, an information provider," explained Nezu. "Like a carrier pigeon," said Edshot. "Exactly," said Nezu. Suddenly, at the other end of the table, All Might spoke up. Is there any chance they might know personal weaknesses of heroes, like personality-wise? Asked All Might. There hasn't been any confirmed case of that happening. Explained Nezu. So, what are we gonna do about this carrier pigeon? Asked Endeavor. Simple, unmask him. Explained Nezu. Endeavor slammed his fist on the table with an eager grin. Consider it done. Said Endeavor. I will avenge my former student. Said Midnight. And I will avenge my partner's death. Said 13. Suddenly, a loud explosion was heard downstairs of the building. What was that? A villain attack, yelled Endeavor. Suddenly, a staff ran into the room with a hint of panic. Mr. Nezu. There's a group of villains downstairs who's attacking the building. Cried the staff. What? Yelled everyone in the room. Downstairs, several staff managers were found beaten and unconscious as groups of men fled the building and started to open drawers, searching for hero documents. At the center of it all lies a man in a pimp outfit. A pure white tuxedo contrasting his black skin and afro as his disco-like outfit was lined in gold. Alright boys. Just a few more of those documents and we will be rich. Cheered the man. Suddenly, several men were sent flying as the pro heroes entered the scene. It's the pro heroes. Yelled some of the grunts. Don't worry. We prepared for this. Said the villain group leader. Midnight sent several men flying with the crack of her whip. A few of them pointed guns at him but fell victim to her quirk. Somnambulism. Just then, she felt her gas getting sucked away. She turned around to see that it activated the AC and that her gas was escaping through the vent. Before she could compose herself, one of the gunner got up and shot her in the abdomen. Ha! That mindless kid wasn't kidding. She really is vulnerable without her gas. Said the grunt. 13, seeing that Midnight was in trouble, activated her black hole, sucking several grunts towards him or her. But some of the nearby bystanders were getting sucked in as well, so she was forced to deactivate her quirk. Just then, one of the grunts used the momentum gained from getting sucked towards her by the black hole to tackle him down and lodge a knife into his shoulder. Suddenly, almost all of the grunts were taken out in one strong air blast. Amongst the rubble, a lone, muscle-bound man walked amongst the debris. Never fear. Crap. Why is he here? Asked the leader. We were having a meeting when you attacked, bad luck buddy, said Present Mick, standing over what's left of his men. I am here. Said All Might. The villain leader, seeing that he was outnumbered, ran for the exit but was stopped by Aizawa, who tied him up with his weapon. Damn, if only I had timed this attack better. We would have had enough documents. We would have been able to get your weakness. Said the leader. So I guess you're the one providing information to other villains. Asked All Might. No common thug would be able to injure two of the top pro heroes after all. The leader laughed. No buddy, you got it all wrong. I was in fact his client. You see, we were planning to do a trade. I would trade the personal info of 5 top-ranked pro heroes for your weakness, All Might. Explained the leader. All Might's pupils dilated. What? Yeah, I too was shocked that you even had any weaknesses, but that's what he told me. And in exchange of completing the mission, he was gonna give it to us. We even paid a huge amount of money to get info of several pro heroes to prepare ourselves. We planned for everything. If only you didn't have this meeting. Explained the leader in frustration. All Might clutched his fist and picked up the man by the neck. Who is this provider? All Might yelled at him. Calm down All Might. Said Endeavor from behind. All Might realized his mistake and dropped the villain. Sorry, I lost composure there. Said All Might, walking away. Just give me second. As the news reporters arrived for live interviews, All Might was long gone. He reverted back to his normal form and slipped away unnoticed. He couldn't believe someone knew his secret. But who? As the situation settled, All Might left and went home. However, unbeknownst to him, he was being watched. Oh All Might, I can't wait to see your face once you find your answer. Said the scout. Boy Izuku. Eyes on the prize, said a familiar voice as Endeavor walked up to him. You got the documents? Asked Izuku. Yup. Said Endeavor, whose body melted down, revealing that of Toga's. Great. One step closer to defeating these heroes. And so, our duo manages to once again slip under the hero's radar. As the name of Mindless remains a mystery to the world. End of bonus chapter. Chapter 10. The wet, splattering sounds of one's footprint echoes through the dark, heavy rainstorm as a man, covered in cut wounds, stumble as he tried to run away from something. Leaving the lit areas in a rush of panic, a plastic card dropped out of his pants, revealing his name. Name: Kuroko Watashi. Nickname: parrot purple. And below all of this personal information lay a certain special text written in all caps and in the bold font. Official hero license. The Kuroko, panting and out of breath, reached an overpass. He was safe, so he leaned against the wall, pressing his flesh wound against the cold hard cement. He covered up his face and, after holding it back to the point of biting off a chunk of his own tongue, let out a muffled scream. He tried to remember what happened. Just minutes ago, him and his 3 other pro-hero partners, Peacock Pink, Crow Blue and Phoenix Red, known as the Justice Birds, famous for stopping villains in an almost perfectly synchronized fashion, were sent in to deal with a bank robbery. Everything was going fine until all light in the area suddenly cut out, and then, out of the corner of his eyes, as if it was just a dream, a man, no, a Grim Reaper, clad in black and gray, with a frown that mirrors the smile of All Might himself, sent 3 men to their grave. His knife, dripping with blood, as the noise of everyone panicking blotted out his screams of terror. As soon, under all of the chaos, the Grim Reaper started moving again, looking at him with a glare radiating with hate, and rushing in with his combat knife. Everything up to that point was a blur, and he was unsure what happened next. Suddenly, he heard noise to his left. His body shook in fear. He turned around, meeting face to face with the man who claimed the lives of his comrades. He shook in fear and anger. His body told him to run, but all he could think of was avenging his fallen friends. Pointing at him, Kuroko yelled with ferocity. "Who are you?" The supposed Grim Reaper simply laughed, and, as his breathing stopped, he suddenly started approaching Kuroko at impressively high speed, the same speed he took out all of his other pro-heroes with. Shaken with fear, Kuroko ran back, before realizing that he was trapped in a dead end. Turning around, he raised both of his arms and braced for impact. The police arrived soon after, discovering the mangled body of the last of the Justice Birds. "That's the 6th hero dead with weak," mumbled one of the police officers. "Who do you think did this?" asked another one of the officers, examining the body. The corpse had several lacerations and slash wounds, most of them were on the tendon, joints and waist, the perfect way to slow someone down, but it was a deep cut wound at the man's throat that finished him off. "Report back to the commissioner, it seems as though the Grim Reaper has struck again," said the police chief. The name Grim Reaper was given to the mysterious serial killer that they have yet to catch or even identify. He just knows that the killer likes to toy with his victims, killing them slowly. Some eyewitnesses claim that they saw the Grim Reaper and that he also has a partner of sorts that joins in on almost all of his missions. After sending no less than 25 pro-heroes, new and veteran, to their grave, the Grim Reaper, although never seen, has been officially added to the villains index. Back at the headquarters, Izuku listened to the news, where the main headline was "The Grim Reaper struck again." Kurogiri looked at him, smiling with pride as the news announced his handiwork, though they could have done a better job at naming him. "You've made quite a name for yourself, Izuku," said Kurogiri. "SHHH. Izuku shushed him. "Oh right." Kurogiri almost immediately got his message. Suddenly, Toga leapt through the door and hugged Izuku from behind. "Izuku. I'm so happy to see you." Toga cried in joy as she burrowed into Izuku's back. "So, how did I do on my first solo mission?" asked Izuku. Toga looked at him as he turned around to face her. "You did amazing," said Toga, hugging him and resting her face against his chest. Just then, she leapt forward and put Izuku in a headlock, putting him in a submission hold. "You let your guard down again, Izuku," Toga said playfully. "And you got overconfident, Again," replied Izuku in an equally playful manner as he opened his left hand, revealing Toga's panties. Toga's face went red like a tomato as she let go of Izuku to check herself. But found that her panties were still on. Just then, Izuku leapt onto her and held her to the ground. "That's another point for me, sweetheart," Izuku said in a dominant tone. "Okay, you got me now, what are you gonna do with this vulnerable body?" Toga said seductively. Izuku grinned. Suddenly, Toga's face blushed as she knew what was coming. "Wait. Izuku. Not here. Please. Not in front of everyone," she yelled out, clearly embarrassed, but it was too late. Izuku leaned down as Toga struggled to get her arms free, pleading for him to stop. Unable to use his hands as they were too busy holding down Toga, Izuku stuck his tongue out. "Wait, your tongue, no. That's even worse," Toga cried. Looking around, she was hoping that her fellow villains would help her, but they were holding out cameras, recording this. "Please," Toga whimpered as Izuku's tongue met its target. "Hahaha. Stop. It tickles." "Stahahaha," Toga cried as Izuku tickled her mercilessly. Seeing how twitchy she was, he quickly let go to use his hands to assist him to his merciless assault. Kurogiri just laughed as this playful fight happened, right under the bar's counter. As the fight finally settled, both Izuku and Toga were panting and sweaty, but still couldn't help but let out a few more giggles. Geez, you really don't show any mercy, don't you? You should rename yourself Merciless, said Toga, readjusting her clothes. Well, the only nickname I'll be called now will be Deku. Izuku said with a hint of disappointment. Oh, right. Your infiltration of Yuuei will be happening tomorrow, said Toga. Yeah, and I'm glad I could have you carry me through these months, strengthening my body and quirk. You were a huge help to me, said Izuku. Yeah, and you were an amazing partner. Toga smiled back, blushing at his compliment. Hey Toga? Asked Izuku. Yes, Izuku-kun, asked Toga. Suddenly, Izuku lunged in, wrapping his arms around Toga's slender figure and, before she could utter a word, plunged his tongue where hers resided. The kiss was only a few seconds long, but both sides wished it could last forever. When the two finally separated, Izuku looked into her blushing face. Just a little thank you before the big day, said Izuku before leaving the door. Toga stood there, giddy like a schoolgirl, rubbing her lips as she savored her kiss with Izuku. These two are just so adorable, Kurogiri commented. The flag of Yuuei swayed in the wind on top of the H-shaped monolith that was Yuuei Academy. Dozens of students and examinees walked about below, preparing themselves for the big event. A cad pulled into the bustling driveway as a young teenager with lively green hair and eyes came out. A new day, a new life, prepare yourself, Yuuei, said Izuku. The mere sight of the massive building was giving him shivers, although, for completely different reasons this time around. He could already picture this massive building going down in flames. Oh, the mere joy. In fact, the mere thought was so joyful, he nearly tripped. Just then, he felt his body get lighter as he floated upwards and landed on his feet. Ah, are you okay? Asked a short brunette, running up to Izuku. It's my quirk's ability, thank me later. It's a bad omen to trip and fall, you know. Izuku wanted to say thanks, but she just kept on talking. Anyway, it really is nerve-wracking, isn't it? One slip up and boom. You fail. Anyways, I got a dip, good luck, she said, running off. What's with her, thought Izuku, praying to God Toga wasn't watching. Boy. Out of my way, shrimp, yelled a familiar voice. It was Katsuki, as lively and pissed off as usual. Even though he was sick of it, he had to act as the old Izuku, as Katsuki knew him since childhood, and if there was one person that can tell when something was off, it was him. Oh, hi Kaken. Gee, good luck with the entrance exams, Izuku said, acting nervous, as usual. Hi fucker, wanna get the shit kicked out of you in front of everyone? Was what Izuku wanted to say though. Katsuki smiled in a pitiful way. Well, if it isn't Deku. You came to be a pro hero? Asked Katsuki in a mocking tone. Well, yeah. Of course. It's my lifelong dream. No, I'm here kill everyone pro hero from the inside. Ha. What a joke. Listen you little shit, I'm gonna be the one standing on top of the world here and you don't even fit as a stepping stone, so how about I give you the directions to the nearest pharmacy so you can buy the Viagra to go fuck yourself, said Katsuki, smacking him to the ground and walking away. Izuku got up, sitting cross-legged. You really talk loud for a wannabe, mumbled Izuku, retaking his villain persona. Excuse, what was that? Asked Katsuki, turning around aggressively. No response, that's what I thought. Getting back up, Izuku walked slowly to the front door. This is his big day and the start to a big plan, so he knew he had to not fuck it up. Welcome to today's live performance. Everybody say hey, yelled a man in sunglasses with a long, blonde mohawkish hairstyle, awaiting for a response. The room remained silent, but the man continued to yell as though they had responded. Well, that's cool, my listeners, I'm here to present the guidelines for your practical. Are you ready? He continued. YAHH. He yelled out loud, but the room still remained silent. Izuku stayed at the other end of the room, noting him down. Voice hero, present Mick, uses a sound quirk, has his own radio channel. He then paused to take a closer look. Very annoying. He added as side note. Shut up. Katsuki yelled, but his voice was easily blotted out by the teacher's excessive yelling. Now, this is how the test will go. You will conduct a 10-minute-long city landscape maneuver. Within this city, there will be fake villains, each worth different amounts of points. Use your quirk abilities to disable them in any means necessary. The teacher explained in an exceptionally loud voice. That last phrase disgusted Izuku. So what, so we need quirks to succeed as heroes, what a cop-out. He mumbled. Of course, playing the anti-hero is prohibited, so no attacking other examinees, or you will be eliminated. Explained Present Mick. Bitsuki grunted in disappointment as he turned to Izuku. Guess you can live for another day. May I ask a question? A voice suddenly broke the in-between silence that Present Mick takes to catch his breath. Suddenly a tall, formal-looking student rose up. It was said that there were no less than 4 varieties of fake villains on the handout. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves, as the top hero academy in Japan, for making such a blatant error. Said the student. And you? He suddenly turned to Izuku, still taking notes, not even reacting to the student's ferocity. You've been doing nothing but take notes during this whole presentation. If you don't want to listen, leave. No response. Hey. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Yelled the student. I can't concentrate with you screaming. Said Izuku in a cold tone, so kindly shut up. Izuku let out a murderous glare, sending a small shiver down the student's spine. I am Tenyalita. A top-grade senior. And I will not tolerate such rudeness coming from, said the student. So now we're talking about social hierarchy. Izuku cut off. I have no obligation to respect a senior from a school I don't go to, just as I have rights to stay silent when someone peeks his nose into other people's business. So, if you please, I believe your host has a guideline to finish explaining. Then you stop talking after that. Sorry. He said, apologizing and sat back down. Kitsuki stared at Izuku in bewilderment. What the heck was that about? Kitsuki wondered. Izuku left a smug grin as he continued to take notes. Alright, now, one last thing. The teacher continued, there will be one last obstacle, the 0-pointer. He will act more like the Thwomps from Mario. There's one in each site, and your job will be to avoid it, got it? Yeah. Some of the examinees replied. Then break a leg everyone, plus ultra. The teacher cheered. Chapter 11. The compound was immense. It really was like a city. Izuku stared upon the vast buildings, wondering how the hell could Japan's economy still remain stable if they invest so much money in this kind of stuff. As he prepared himself, he looked around, identifying immediately Iida, who was still pissed off at him, flashing him a mean glare, and the brunette girl who saved his face from meeting with the pavement. Looking around, he didn't find Kitsuki, however. I assume he's in a different site. Thought Izuku, looking around as he analyzed everyone in his block. I would appear as though most of the examinees have specially designed outfits to amplify their quirk's abilities. He himself had at least 4 different weapons concealed onto him, but seeing some of the outfits the others were wearing, he had a distinct feeling of standing out. Hey. Why are you here? Hoping to interfere? Said a familiar voice. Izuku turned around and saw Iida aggressively grabbing onto his shoulder. Not even a good luck, you must be one hell of a senior back at your school. Said Izuku. People started mumbling around the two. Hey, isn't that the kid that silenced Iida? Mumbled one of the examinees. I've been to the same school as him, no one can silence him. Mumbled another. That scrawny green-haired kid must be a big shot delinquent. Mumbled a third. Izuku, hearing all these voices behind his back, turned around with confidence. Come on guys. No one's an enemy here. If you have something important to say, why not let us hear it? Izuku said out loud. Iida pulled him back by the shoulder. What do you think you're doing? Asked Iida. Impersonating you, cause that's how you talk. Replied Izuku with a smug look. Iida wanted to rebut, but just then, Present Mick was heard again. Begin. Some of the confused students stood there confused. What's wrong? The test has started. Run, run, run. Suddenly, everyone made a mad dash towards the test block, with Izuku leading the charge. Slowpoke, said Izuku to himself, despite the fact that he's clearly just using his time slow to gain a speed advantage. Suddenly, a wall beside him exploded as a metallic walker emerged from the smoke. His singular lens targeted Izuku as he aimed 2 cannons at his legs. Suddenly, the kid disappeared from his feet as his vision was suddenly cut. Izuku, standing above the broken-down robot, pulled out the combat knife he jammed into the robot's head. So these are 1-pointers? Asked Izuku. I've already mapped down their weak spots where they're the least armored, but still, these guys are way too weak, wonder how the others are doing. Izuku peeked out from the side of a building. In front of his eyes, unfolded a full-out war zone, metallic bits flying left and right from the effect of tens of hundreds of quirks. He counted the bodies, there were already over 30 of the robots that were destroyed. From the feed, the pro heroes observed the multiple examinees doing their work. So many enemies, so limited time, it brings out the best in them, allowing us to know their true nature," said the pro hero, observing this carnage unfold before his eyes. "You have the intelligence gatherers, those who can assess the situation in an instant, the mobility experts, those who always come first, the decision makers, those who can cope with any given situation," he analyzed, before turning to Kitsuki, "and then there's the natural-born warriors." The eyes of the pro hero then shifted to Izuku, who seemed to be breaking one of the machines apart. "What's that kid doing?" asked one of the spectators. The hero grinned, pushing a big red button. "We're about to find out," said the hero. Izuku fiddled with one of the broken down three-pointers. He started putting, linking all of the broken down wires to one of the robot's claw. "Remember your training, Izuku, these robots are all electrical, they should be no different from than the lights in a mall, and I've cut the power to many of those buildings in the last few months," Izuku said to himself. Suddenly, a loud rumbling was heard. As Izuku turned around, he saw a massive Goliath of a robot heading towards him. All the students scrambled like ants at the sight of the gargantuan beast. "That must be the zero-pointer," Izuku thought. "No matter, we are tasked with running away, and that's what I'll do, let's just hope 15 points is enough." Suddenly, out of the corner of his eyes, he saw something. A brunette girl, the same one he was saved by, lying on the ground. She must have tripped, the irony. Suddenly, Izuku froze. He felt the helplessness of the girl as the massive robot approached. His eyes lit up, reverting to a familiar shade of light green, as his mind yelled at him something it hasn't in a while. "Save her." Izuku, grabbing the robot's wire-covered arms, held his breath and ran as fast as he could, running in front of the girl as the giant's palm descended upon them. He raised his robotic arm and jammed it into the joints of the giant's middle finger. The massive surge of electricity erupted from the robot's arm and into the gimmick, frying it from the inside, as the robot was about to collapse onto them. The other students, seeing this unfold before their eyes, gazed in awe as that colossus had been taken down. Holding their breath, they suddenly saw the perpetrator emerge from the dust, holding on his back the unconscious body of a young brunette. Izuku saw the crowd and gave a triumphant smile before collapsing. "Looks like part of the old me is still alive, damn," thought Izuku as his conscience slipped away. Staring at the unconscious body, Iida felt a sense of guilt crawling down his back. "So this is who you really are." When everyone was running away, he went in the line of fire, putting his life on the line, just to save the girl. Iida monologued. As the announcer called the end of the exam, a short, old lady arrived in scene, staring down the boy. "Backbone fracture, probably from the gimmick falling in the tube, not other than that, he's fine," she said, kissing Izuku's body, which activated her quirk, healing his wounds. As the infirmary bits came to pick up Izuku, the pro heroes commented on his performance. "That gimmick costs as much as a battleship. How in the world did that one kid destroy it?" asked one of the observers. "It was that makeshift taser he made." "But why would he?" asked another. "Wasn't his quirk enough?" In the back of the room, a man, wrapped in his sleeping bag, staring at the screen smiled. "Maybe he knew this world isn't all about quirks," said the man. "It's been 1 week since the exam," Izuku was anxious. He knew that his plan was gonna go down the drain if he didn't pull this off. But most importantly, it would appear as though there were still some semblance of a hero left in him. That was his biggest problem. As Izuku played with the bar's dartboard, a familiar face came to the room. And from Izuku's senses, that person wasn't happy. "Izuku!" yelled Toga in a pissed-off tone. "Now, Toga, I can explain," Izuku said with a hint of nervousness, but was pinned down by Toga instantly. "I was one of the spectators, watching you clean house during the entrance exam, and what did I see? You. With another girl in your arms. I needed to increase my reputation so that no one would suspect me. Trust me. It's part of the plan." Izuku lied, trying to crawl away. "Liar!" Toga yelled, holding him down by the neck. "Now you will pay the ultimate price." "Toga, no!" Izuku yelled as Toga stripped him of his shirt, revealing his bare, muscular chest. "Get ready!" Toga yelled. "Nahohahoho. STHP. Please. Stahahahap." Izuku yelled as Toga started violently tickling him back. "Hey back, bitch!" Toga yelled, as Kurogiri giggled as he took a picture. "Yo Izuku. A letter came from Yuuei," said Dabi, walking in, witnessing the intercourse unfolding before him. He stared at them in silence. "If you're busy, I can come back later," said Dabi, without changing attitude as he turned around and left, putting the letter on the desk. As the fight finally ended, with the two still sorta giggly, Toga got off Izuku, rearranging herself. "Well, happy?" asked Izuku, panting. "Yup. Apology accepted," said Toga, returning to her usual cheerful tone. "Well good, now if you may, I have a letter to read," said Izuku, grabbing and opening the letter. After reading a few lines, a smile appeared in Izuku's face. "So?" asked the villains. "The infiltration had begun," said Izuku in a triumphant tone. "Yeah." The whole room cheered. "Congrats Izuku." Toga hugged him tight. "Yes, congratulations indeed. Now, what are you gonna do next?" asked Tamura. "Well, this is a huge step for us, I think we should celebrate," said Izuku, holding up a pint of amber beer. "Cheers," yelled Toga, clanking her pint with Izuku's. As the main group was celebrating, All for One stared at him in his office. A grin appeared under his mask as he slowly put his scarred hand on Izuku's face. "Perhaps, I have found myself a much more worthy successor," he said to himself. He then turned his attention to Shigaraki. Still, Tamura isn't fully ruled out, but he has too many flaws. He's impatient, unstable, immature, and simply not fit as a leader. But, does Izuku fit all the criteria that he doesn't? He asked himself. All for One then opened his documents. Although, Izuku Midoriya, where have I heard that name before? Though All for One. Flipping through the International Villains catalog, his eyes widened as the answer was revealed to him before his very eyes. The last name, the messy green hair, a unique and different sense of justice, it has to be. The son of Hisashi Midoriya. All for One yelled out, scrambling his head. He let out a small laugh. Now this is getting interesting. "Let's see, Hisashi, if your son can accomplish what you failed," said All for One, opening a drawer with a pitch black briefcase with a "Do Not Open" labeled onto it. All for One opened the briefcase, revealing a syringe with a white liquid inside. "If this really is his final goal, then maybe he isn't the ally we think he is," said All for One, "only time will tell." Chapter 12. It was the big day, the first day of class in Yuuei. Tears ran down Inko's eyes as she saw her son, dressed in Yuuei's school uniform, take to the door. "How long have you been dreaming for this moment, Izuku?" asked Inko, shaking with joy. Izuku sighed. "Far too long, Mom, far too long," he replied, turning around. His hand shook as he turned the knob. The old him would have been ecstatic to find out he was making it to Yuuei, but now, that childlike excitement is gone. "I don't particularly miss it, but damn, it really feels like I let go of a huge part of myself," thought Izuku as the light shone through the opening door, creating a gate to his future. On his way to Yuuei, he was stopped by a group of familiar individuals. Izuku smiled as he ran to his former compatriots. "Sachi. Long time no see, buddy," Izuku called out. "Yo. Aizu bro. It's been too long," said Sachi, giving Izuku a fist bump. "I heard you were joining the League of Villains, good luck on that, and this is," Izuku said, looking at the girl to his right. Irina Van Titty Glorious," replied Sachi in a mocking tone. The girl next to him seemed real pissed off however, and pulled the man's hair hard, causing his to squirm in pain. "It's Irina Von Tescalorius. Get it wrong again and I will crush you," she said in a pissed off tone. Yeah, whatever, German names are hard to pronounce anyway," said Sachi, not letting go of his mawkish tone. "So what are you two doing here anyway?" asked Izuku, letting out a small giggle at the two. "The League wanted to assign me on a sort of initiative mission so they could observe and classify me. Apparently my pure awesomeness was not enough to convince them, so now I have to assassinate this pro-hero named Acacia to earn their approval," explained Sachi. "And I assume that applies to Irina as well?" asked Izuku. "No, she's my supervisor. Bossy, stuck up, and super annoying," said Sachi, rolling his eyes. "Hey. Keep up that attitude and I'm stuffing you into my sock," Irina responded in a pissed off tone, before turning to Izuku, "and don't think I'm just some lackey either. I'll have you know that I'm part of the vanguards, the highest ranks in the league. And I highly suggest you kneel to your superior." Izuku smiled. "You? A vanguard?" asked Izuku, "Quit lying." Irina let out a rage-filled aura. "Me? Lying? You got guts. Don't you know who I am?" asked Irina in an intimidating tone. Suddenly, Izuku appeared behind her faster than she could register and put her in a headlock with a knife pointed directly into her neck. "I don't recall the faces of my inferior," Dollmaster responded Izuku. Irina froze in shock. "You it can't be," she uttered, "Hero Hunter. Ah, so you know me after all," Izuku said, letting her go. Good, then I wish you both good luck with your mission. Izuku said with a smile. Sachi and Irina froze at the sight of his true personality. After that, Sak stopped talking, acting like he was in a hurry, and ran off. Irina quickly followed. Izuku gave a smug grin before yelling back at them. By the way, Acacia doesn't have crap for range and is slow as hell. Hit him from a distance. Yelled Izuku before returning on track. The school of Yuuei was just as impressive as the pictured online advertised. The massive building, looking more like a fancy museum than a school, stood like a titan in the fields claimed by the Hero Association. Izuku traveled down the corridors while looking at the school map. Geez, this place is a damn labyrinth, I can't believe I'll have to take this route every day. Said Izuku to himself. Reaching Class A, he immediately realized the size of the door. Is this what they call overcompensating? Said Izuku as a huge drop of sweat appeared on the back of his head. He heard some people arguing inside, and his heart nearly skipped a beat as he recognized the voice. Opening the door, his suspicions were confirmed. For the love of all that is holy, remove your foot from the desk. It's so disrespectful to this school and the craftsmen who made the desk. You're soiling this school's reputation. Yelled Iida. Like I care. What school are you from, you extra? Kitsuki yelled back with a hint of arrogance. My name's Tenyu Iida from Samei Private Academy. Iida presented himself his formality. Samei? A stuck-up elitist, eh? Then I should blow you to bits. Kitsuki replied with less formality. Iida seemed taken aback from his statement. You're awful. Do you really wish to become a hero? Iida said with shock. He then turned around to notice Izuku entering the room. He quickly ran to him. Oh, hello there. Yeah, you presented yourself already. Said Izuku nonchalantly. Izuku Midoriya, you perceived the true nature of the exam while I was unable to. Said Iida, I misjudged you, well I hate to admit it, you were the superior candidate. He said with heavy heart. Izuku out his hand of Iida's shoulder. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll get better as time goes on. We're all here to improve ourselves, right? To work to a better, more fair and equal tomorrow, looking beyond who is hero and who is villain. That's what a true hero is, isn't it? Izuku said in an encouraging tone, while subtly defining what he thinks a real hero should be like. Yeah, thanks. Iida replied. Wait, who's the senpai here? Said a bystander student, watching the two of them. Ah. Curly hair. Said a familiar voice. Izuku turned around to meet face to face with the girl he just saved a few weeks ago. Yeah, you, the plain-looking boy. She continued energetically. Izuku ignored her compliments as his eyes steered to Kitsuki, staring at him with intensity. Izuku let out a sadistic grin as he blushed at the mere thought of the torment he was gonna put him through. Kitsuki looked at his with examining him from head to toe like he was trying to solve a riddle. 1 week ago. Back at their old middle school, the teacher congratulated both Kitsuki and Izuku for passing the test. On his way back home though, he noticed someone following him and walked faster. But however it was, he couldn't shake him off. Soon, his pursuer, tired of following, yelled at him out loud. Izuku! Yelled a familiar voice as he turned around. Hakken? What are you doing here? Izuku asked nervously. Suddenly, Kitsuki ran up to him and pinned him against the wall. What dirty tricks did you use to get into the school? Kitsuki yelled at him. What? Izuku asked back, fakishly trembling. I was supposed to be the first and only. My grand plans, you tore them to shreds. Kitsuki yelled at him, I told you to go somewhere else. Kitsuki threw a punch at him, but was stopped by Izuku, holding back his fist with an impressive amount of strength. Listen, Kitsuki, I am not gonna protest against your rage, as I also have my plans for Yuuei, but I will however let you know, Izuku said in a genuine tone, as he stopped faking and demonstrated a bit of his new personality. Set some higher standards, will you? Stop looking down on inferiors while there's enough people above you to blot out the sun. Suddenly, with great speed, Izuku broke out of Kitsuki's grab and snuck past him with great speed, walking away. Not only was this his first time fighting back against me, but his old personality was completely gone. He was not scared for the least bit shaking. He didn't even call me by the nickname he always calls me. There's something fishy going on. Though Kitsuki. You're ready for the entrance ceremony and guidance session. I wonder what our teacher will be like. Boy am I anxious. Ichako finished. If you're here to socialize, then get out. Said a sudden voice from behind. Everyone turned to the corner of the classroom to find a sleeping bag with someone in it, a middle-aged man it seemed. He was seen sipping a juice box. This is, he said, instantly finishing the juice box, the hero course. There was someone in there? Thought the class. The lanky man got up groggily, revealing his skinny figure under his tight black shirt and scarf. It took a whole 8 seconds for you to calm down. Well, time is a precious resource. You're not a very rational bunch, are you? He continued. You're our teacher? Asked Izuku. I'm Aizawa Shota, your homeroom teacher. He replied, shocking everyone. Homeroom teacher, though, everyone in the class. Now change into your gym clothes and hurry up outside. He said abruptly. Meanwhile, All Might was in the teacher's lounge, ready the faculty register. The Yuuei education system is like no other. I'm correct. Today, the homeroom teacher will be conducting the test arc works. Izuku finished All Might's monologue as they arrived to the outside yard. What about the entrance ceremony or guidance session? Asked Ichako. No time to waste on that stuff if you want to become heroes. Replied Aizawa in a cold tone. Yuuei is known for its freestyle education system that applies to the teachers as well. Replied Aizawa. Softball throwing, standing long jump, 50-meter dash, grip strength, side-to-side jumps, etc. This country still insists on prohibiting quirks when calculating the averages on record. The education department is still procrastinating. Aizawa explained. He then turned to Kitsuki. Bakugo, how far could you throw in middle school? Asked Aizawa. 67-meter. Answered Bakugo. Great, then try with your quirk, just don't leave the circle. Ordered Aizawa. Kitsuki clutched the softball, channeling his strength. I'll add a boom to this pitch. He thought. Die. Kitsuki yelled as he threw the ball with all of his might. 705.2 meters, recorded Aizawa. Die. Thought Izuku. Wow. That kid's amazing. And we all get to freely use our quirks, you say. This hero course is awesome. Cheered some students. That comment seemed to offend Aizawa, however. Awesome? Don't get your hopes up. Becoming a pro hero in 3 years. Don't think it will be all fun and games. The ones with the lowest score across the 8 events will be deemed hopeless and expelled. Explained Aizawa. The whole group went silent. Did you say something? Izuku suddenly spoke up, too distracted from the notes he was taking. Aizawa-sensei, what a hassle he'll be. I feel bad for any student in his classroom. Thought All Might. What the heck is wrong with this guy? Does he show any sense of care? Yelled some of the students in the background, shocked at Izuku's composure. Aizawa smiled. Keeping your composure after all this time, I like you, all calm and compassed despite an unplanned event unfolding before your eyes. Said Aizawa with pride. Unplanned? I knew this was gonna happen all along. Izuku said with a joint of confusion. The class, including Aizawa, went into shock. You do, they yelled in unison. This is a hero school, isn't it? Did you really think we will just be shot out of a cannon so that we can risk our lives fighting villains? Frankly, I'm surprised you guys didn't stage an unannounced villain attack or fake a murder to test our problem-solving skills. Making a situation as real as possible can train composure to the point where you become impervious to fear. Explained Izuku. Aizawa grinned with glee upon hearing this. What is your name, kid? Asked Aizawa. Izuku Midoriya, why? Replied and asked Izuku. Listen up. This is a notebook example of a ready hero. Unfazed by any dire circumstances. And such, as reward, you can sit out this examination. Aizawa said, patting Izuku's head. The other students' eyes nearly bulged out of their skull. What? They yelled in unison. Deku, you son of a, Kitsuki charged in, before getting stopped by several tapes. But I can't use my quirk. Said Kitsuki, confused. Because I erased it. Now, get started. Said Aizawa, glaring at him. So that's his quirk, erasure, the ability to erase other quirks with his mere glare. Interesting. Said Izuku, sitting back and spectating the scene. That damn kid. Thought some of the students, glaring at him in jealousy. Wow, he impressed a teacher just like that. He must be a very successful student back at his school, almost like a senpai. Commented Ichako. Don't be ridiculous, Ichako, he may be impressive, but he's far from a. Don't let me distract you, do your best. Izuku called out, cutting Iida off. Never mind, he does feel like a senpai. Iida changed his mind. Suddenly, Aizawa pulled out a notebook, turned to Izuku. By the way, you had amazing ideas back there, mind if I note a few? Asked Aizawa. Don't you dare give that man ideas. Yelled most of the students. Sitting out the exam also gave Izuku another perk. He got to examine and study the quirks of the other students. He took a particular interest in this one student named Shota Todoroki during his observation, as he displayed amazing feats and has an interesting quirk to back it up. Eventually the exams were over. "Welp, that concludes the exams, and now, to tally up the scores," explained Aizawa. Most of the students were shaking anxiously, hoping not to get expelled. As the scoreboard showed up however, Aizawa let out one last bit of information. "By the way, I was kidding when I said I would expel the lowest score, it was just to bring out the best in all of you," explained Aizawa. The class froze. "What?" Izuku however, saw through his lie. "Just kidding. My ass, you did it because you thought you were being clever after I mentioned my ideas. I saw your documents, you expelled a full first-year class last year, you would have expelled Let's See Mineta without batting an eye," thought Izuku. "And that concludes the class, see you all tomorrow," Aizawa said, leaving nonchalantly. After his speech, he headed towards the school exit but was stopped by All Might. "May I ask you why you let Izuku off easy?" asked All Might. Aizawa turned to All Might. "I noticed something off about the kid, he seemed too composed, he claims to have predicted this event, but the only real way to know about it is to hack into the school forums. It may just be a stroke of luck, but I'm not taking any chances, I have my suspicions on him," explained Aizawa. "Now that you mention it, I seem to feel like I've met the kid somewhere, but can't seem to get a grasp on where," explained All Might, "but keep your eye on him, there is a serial killer who knows my only weakness, we can't take any chances." Little did the two of them know, Izuku followed Aizawa and overheard the entire conversation. "Shit, he's onto me. No matter, I'll just have to take him out as soon as possible," said Izuku to himself. Later that day, he left the building after the first day, with his head and notebook overflowing with new information he can't wait to share with the league. "Yo. Izu bro." A familiar voice was heard, it was Sachi, and Irina was following him. "Sachi. How did the mission go?" asked Izuku. "Killed the target and left no trace," he replied. "You have my right to be impressed," continued Irina. "Of course, this operation couldn't have been successful without me." "Didn't you get pinned down like, at least 3 times when fighting the dude?" asked Sachi. "Oh shut up," yelled Irina, pissed off. As the three headed off, Achako and Iida watched from a distance. "I wanted to say thank you to him for encouraging me, damn it," said Achako in dissatisfaction. "Yeah, the dude's impressive and respectful, I definitely misjudged him that other day," replied Iida before punching a nearby tree in frustration, startling Achako. "Just how does he figure everything out so quickly when even I couldn't? Just how?" "Okay Tenya-san, just breathe okay? Breathe," said Achako, attempting to calm him down. Back in the hideout, Izuku started working on his documents, compiling weaknesses and countermeasures to the heroes he meet that day. Let's see, Eraserhead, highly agile quirk erasure, skilled martial artist, aims for weak points countermeasure and weaknesses, dry eyes, low lifting strength, frail and fragile if caught. Izuku studied. "Is that our next target?" asked Toga, looking over Izuku's shoulder. "He obviously is, the man is on to me. So we must kill him," said Izuku. "Consider it done," Toga said, shaking in excitement. "Don't be so rash, the man is tough, I suggest we plan our attack in advance," responded Izuku. "And what if you fail the assassination?" asked Kurogiri in curiosity. Izuku thought of that for a moment, then a grin drew on his face. "I have a plan B, in case we fail to kill Aizawa, I have a way to not only clear away any suspicion he has of me, but also to boost my own reputation, maybe even allowing me to access the more secret files these heroes are hiding," replied Izuku with a grin. "Really? Let's hear it," said Toga with anticipation. "Alright, but first, we'll need a Nomu with high physical strength and shock absorption, the trigger drug just in case, flashbangs, Toga, and a lot of fodders," said Izuku. "All of that will take us at least a week to prepare," replied Kurogiri. "Then that's even better, because from my recollection when hacking into the school's forums, that would be around the time we'd be participating at the disaster rescue simulation," said Izuku. "Then that will be when we strike," said Kurogiri. "Got it. I'll call Shigaraki for the preparations," said Toga, later Izukun. Later. Chapter 13. The first official day of class was as standard as any high school goes, from conventional courses like math English to even PE, which Izuku always found odd since isn't the hero training course already technically PE. Anyhow, it was as boring as anyone would expect, and Izuku found himself mostly taking notes the whole time off any and all school staffs and teachers. Not even the cafeteria's cook was safe from his analytical grasp. Third period rolled around, where the hero courses were supposed to begin, and Izuku has done nothing but gather info from the school. Heading to the homeroom, he bumped into Achako by coincidence. Guess the world always find a way to stick the two together. Izuku noticed her and quickly tried to hide his notes, but the brunette's lightning-fast eyes caught the notebook within its side as she floated the book right out of Izuku's satchel. "Hey! Give that back!" yelled the panicked student, trying to grab his notebook as Achako floated it towards her. "Wow, that's a lot of notes you've taken of the teachers, you even drew a sketch with vital weak points?" asked the curious brunette. Well, Izuku tried to come up with a reason to justify his notes. "You must be a super fan. I've seen people like you creep on different heroes and attempting to get anything substantial from them. I once even heard of some kid who, according to eyewitnesses, was such a big fan of All Might, he was seen grabbing onto his ankle as he leapt around the city." She continued energetically. Izuku blushed in embarrassment from her description. "Can you please return me my notes?" he asked. "Oh. Sure," said Achako, sort of embarrassed at herself. As Izuku continued his route to his class, he noticed Katsuki sulking by his locker and decided that now was the perfect time for some payback for all those years of abuse. So Izuku bought a soda from a nearby vending machine and waited. From the notes he has taken, this was usually where Iida would walk by. Sure enough, there he was, coming from the opposite side of the hall, surrounded by at least 4 students, asking him about some math or English notion they don't understand. Izuku threw a pen at their direction, right where Katsuki was standing. Katsuki turned his head to see what that pen flying by was about and locked eyes with Iida, just as Izuku planned. Knowing Katsuki, this would probably be where Katsuki gets pissed at Iida's popularity and attempts to trip him. Sure enough, he already stuck his foot out. But the setup fully realized he just needed to play his part. Just as Iida was coming close to Katsuki, he came running at him from another side with his soda can open. "Iida, thank God you're here, how do we do the woe?" Izuku ran to Iida, intentionally tripping over Katsuki, flinging his arm backwards and spilling purple liquid all over Katsuki. Iida saw Izuku tripping and quickly ran to help him, but not quick enough as Katsuki picked Izuku off the ground and slammed him against a wall. "Deku, you fuck. Look at what you did to me. I am gonna break you beyond repair, you hear me?" Katsuki yelled at him as his rage caused his soda-drenched shirt to boil. "Stop that right now." Iida called out, "It was obvious you were the one who tripped him, now apologize." "Trip him? I was gonna trip you. And he got in the way. So I should be pounding him twice as hard." Katsuki yelled, attracting the attention of everyone around him. "You were what?" the tall senior-looking student uttered in anger. "You're despicable." "Yeah. Screw you, Katsuki. Leave that poor kid alone," yelled the girl to his right. "Yeah, leave him alone," yelled another student. "You're always so loud. Can you just shut up?" yelled another one. "Yeah. And to think he wants to be a hero. He should just resign before the teachers do it for him," yelled a shorter student in the back. "Yeah. Resign," yelled another student as a mob was practically gathering around Katsuki. "Resign. Resign. Resign. Resign." The mob yelled in unison as Katsuki felt backed up into a corner. "See catch Ann." A voice was suddenly heard behind him as Katsuki turned to see Izuku smiling. But it wasn't his usual smile, this one was cold, sadistic, beaming with twisted pleasure. "No one likes you, and you still call yourself number 1. Katsuki didn't have time to register as someone in the crowd threw an empty soda can on him, followed by a barrage of crumbled up papers, apple pits, eraser head, the actual eraser head, JK, and even some quirk attacks. "Fuck off." Katsuki yelled back at the crowd, hoping to silence them, but it had the opposite effect. "Wow. And now he's fighting back on us, what's wrong with him?" some of the students mumbled. Katsuki was stunned. All of his life, he was used to people doing what he said, always being on the giving end, but now, being on the receiving end, he felt powerless. If he attacked, he would just be digging his grave deeper, so what could he do? "Sucks, doesn't it?" "So, how does it feel to step into my shoes?" asked Izuku, letting out a light giggle, causing Katsuki to avert his attention to Izuku. "No, you're not Deku," Katsuki uttered. "Hehehe, what's wrong? Can't accept that you no longer scare me? What will you do now? Look around you. Everyone is against you, pinning you down and peeling away your face to reveal the giant L hidden under on your forehead. Isn't it hurtful? Cry, you miserable twat. Cry." Izuku said sadistically, before breaking down into laughter. No. I am Kitsuki Bakugo. The future #1 pro hero, and I will not be outshunned by you losers. So fuck off. Kitsuki yelled back, louder than the crowd, before running away, trying to hide the tears running down his face. As Kitsuki left, Iida, not noticing Izuku breakdown, ran to help Izuku up. Here, up you go. Said Iida, helping Izuku get up to his feet. Thanks bro. Izuku replied. No, I should thank you for taking that fall for me. Relied Iida. Ah, it's nothing, trust me, I don't think he'll be much of a hassle now that practically the whole school will hear of this. Replied Izuku, before walking off, see you in class. This was what everyone in Yuuei signed up for and was looking forward to, the hero course. What the class was not expecting was the teacher for said course. Dashing through the door, All Might came in a spectacular fashion. I have come through the door like normal. The #1 pro hero chanted out as he valiantly dashed from the doorway to the podium in a mere millisecond. As the class discussed about their teacher, Izuku clenched his fist as All Might started his opening speech. I would first like to congratulate all of you wonderful students, not everyone makes it to Yuuei you know. All Might said proudly. Yeah, a few months ago, you told me to just quit and now look at where I'm at. Brushing it off like it never happened. Some pro hero you turned out to be. Izuku said to himself. Not, without further ado, let's get straight to the point. Your hero course of the day will be battle training. All Might said. The class shook with excitement as several glass cases started getting shipped into the room as they already anticipated their contents. Our costumes? The students thought with hype. The costumes are all designed to fit your individual quirks and are completely under the design you have sent us, now get changed and meet outside, this will be. All Might's speech fades into a monologue as minutes later, the students, in their respective costumes, stepped out. Your first step at becoming a hero. Izuku was confused however, as he completely forgot to send in a costume design, yet still received a costume. Not only that, but the box had a completely different design from the rest, and when he opened it, there was a note attached inside. His heart dropped like a brick when he recognized the handwriting. Hey Izuku-kun. I noticed that you still didn't have a hero costume, so I sent one to you on my behalf, be sure to try it on, I'll be WATCHING. God damn it Toga Izuku said to himself. The costume itself looked more like a Sebastian meets Neo cosplay than an actual hero costume. The long black leather trench coat with a formal white suit underneath, complete with a butterfly knot, giving a more mobster feel. Underneath the suit were concealed weapons like knives and a gun and a syringe with a purple liquid inside that says, only use in emergency. Okay, not seeing anything too embarrassing. Said Izuku to himself. Hey, who exactly is HT? Asked Ichako, running up to him. Huh? Izuku asked confused. Taking off the coat, he saw a giant inked in white text on the back of the trench coat, written property of HT. In a bold font. Of course you would. Izuku murmured to himself. Shall we begin my students? It's time for battle training. Said All Might, gathering all the attention. Sensei. It would appear that we're in the same compound that was used in the entrance examination, does that mean that we will once again perform another cityscape maneuver? Asked a armor-clad soldier next to Izuku, whom he recognized as Iida. Nope, instead, you'll be moving to step 2. Indoor anti-personnel battle training. Replied All Might, well it's true that most villain battles are commonly seen outdoors, most villains statistically show up indoors. As a villain myself, I can confirm that that's true. Thought Izuku. Between confinement, house arrest, black market deals, in this hero-phile society of ours, the most clever villains hide indoors, and since no current technology can generate the clever enough AI, you will be split into teams of villain and heroes, and face off in 2-on-2 indoor battle. Explained the pro hero. So this isn't basic battle training. Commented a froggy-looking girl. Practical experience is the best way to teach you the basics. Replied All Might. It wasn't long before All Might was bombarded by a barrage of questions, unable to keep up, All Might pleaded for the students to ask one at a time. Just then, a voice was heard in the far back of the group as a boy in a black trench coat called for everyone's attention. I've read everything already. Said Izuku, holding onto a pile of paper. The weekly schedules. How did he get a hold of that? I had it in my All Might though as he suddenly realized his hand is empty. Starting from the top, since our teacher is terrible at descriptions, this basic battle training program is meant to put our strengths, tactics, cooperation and problem-solving skills to the test. 2 teams of 2 will be put into a small building, a villain side and a hero side. The goal of the villains is to protect a bomb that will detonate if the heroes don't stop it. While there won't be an actual detonation, the bomb will emit a loud noise from its installed speakers, announcing the villain's victory, or they can win by defeating the heroes. The heroes on the other hand can win by securing the bomb or by incapacitating the villains. Any questions? Explained Izuku in a calm and patient manner. The whole group stood still, including Kitsuki. Izuku on the other hand simply let out a warming smile. Well, I guess not, All Might, will you do us the honor and draw the straws to decide the partners? Asked Izuku. He's the real teacher here. Thought most of the students. Oh, of course. All Might replied, returning to consciousness after getting entranced by his speech. In the end, Izuku ended up with Iida of all people, and Kitsuki ended up with Achako. Yes, I know, it's supposed to be the other way around, but I don't care. The rest of the teams formed, they are still the same. Finally, we get to the main event. The first two up are All Might said while picking into the two boxes, Team A on villains versus Team D on heroes. Team A? That our team, and who are we facing against? Asked Izuku. Suddenly, Izuku's heart raced as he saw his opponent. Kitsuki. Izuku? Are you alright? You seem awfully giddy. Iida asked him in a worried tone. I'm fine, don't worry about me, replied Izuku. The villain goes in first, and the heroes will follow 5 minutes later, the rest of us will watch via CCTV. All Might continued to explain, Izuku, Iida, you boys need to adopt a villain mindset, this is practical experience, so don't hold back. Iida turned to Izuku. Now, listen Izuku, for someone like you, I know acting as a villain may be tough, but do your best, okay? Asked Iida. Izuku smiled back. Don't worry, I make an amazing villain impression, you'll see. Izuku replied, happy he can now be himself, try rating my performance out of 10, okay? As Izuku and Iida entered the building, Kitsuki and Achako waited outside. The spike-haired hothead looked at the building, entranced. Deku, what in the world is going on inside your head? Wait, could it be? Yo Kitsuki? Hello? You in there, buddy? Asked Achako, trying to break him out of his entranced state. As being admitted into Yuuei make him grow arrogant? He must think that he's on my level now that we're in the same school and class. Kitsuki thought as he clenched his fist, then I'll just have to show you where you really belong, trash. Meanwhile, inside the building, Iida took a good look at their objective. Playing the villain role is really displeasing, this isn't even that well made of a bomb. Iida said to himself as Izuku looked out the window in anticipation. Seeing Kitsuki all pumped up made him all the more excited. Without intention, Izuku let out a murderous grin and cackle that caught Iida's attention. Is everything okay, Izuku? Iida asked, confused. Oh, nothing, I was just practicing my villain acting. Izuku lied. Suddenly, the start of the training was announced by All Might from the speakers, and Izuku saw Kitsuki dashing into the building, even knocking his teammate over in the process. His legs shook with excitement as he felt lightheaded from the rush of adrenaline he was getting. Damn, this is too much for me to take, I must kill, no not killing, can't fight it, Izuku was saying to himself as he bit his lips, trying to make him snap out of it. Are you okay? We can call it off if you're not feeling too good. Iida replied. Suddenly, Izuku turned around to Iida, his lively green bloodshot eyes glare into his soul, as his smile gleamed with a murderous aura, his fist shook as he slowly turned away and walked towards the stairs without saying a word. Wow, he wasn't kidding, he's an amazing impersonator, for a minute there, I thought he was actually gonna kill someone. Back downstairs, Kitsuki dashed across the building, not even slowing down to analyze anything. Suddenly, he heard a noise coming from the window. He rapidly spun around and fired an explosion towards his target. Hiya. It's me, Kitsuki. It's just me. Yelled Achako, nearly the top of her head burnt off. Oh, it's you. Replied Kitsuki nonchalantly. Not even an I'm sorry for nearly blowing your head off, asked Achako. Hey. It's your fault you snuck up on me like that. I'm here to murder Deku. And nothing else. Kitsuki said. Suddenly Achako froze. It wasn't from the shock of Kitsuki's aggressiveness that she was well aware of, rather, it was what was behind him. Katsu, Achako uttered, jittering. Kitsuki, confused from her initial behavior, suddenly felt a presence behind him, a bubble of aggression even larger than his. Turning around, he saw his target, but something was different. He expected Izuku to be hiding on the top floor, while Iida did all the work on ground floor, but rather, Izuku arrive alone, staggering like a zombie almost. Ah, there you are, Kaken. I was thinking about you for so long. Cried out, his face was blushing, and his smile made him resemble more and more like Toga, but even she would ask him to tone things down a notch. What the fuck, Deku? Was the only thing Kitsuki could muster out. You were such a bully back in the days, the mere thought of it pisses me off. I've been waiting for so long for payback. Every day, I would lie in bed, imagining the shock on your face as the kid you thought of was nothing more than a pebble in your path became the boulder that would crush you dead in your tracks. I couldn't bear it any longer. Izuku said ecstatically, with a hint of anger, murderous intent and lust. Upon hearing this, Kitsuki took control of his anger and clenched his fist. Achako could feel it, Kitsuki wasn't any less angry than he was a few minutes earlier, but now, his anger felt more controlled. Restrained. Achako, run to the top floor, the two of us have a score to settle. Kitsuki ordered at his companion. Alright, Achako said, running past Izuku, who didn't even turn around to look at her. With the two of them locked in a death stare, Kitsuki finally got the courage to speak up. So I guess this is what you really thought of me, huh? Not surprising, given what I've done to you. He said in a calm and serious tone. You had no consideration for my feelings, you just didn't care. You were always so stuck up, thinking of yourself as high and mighty. It pissed me off, but I couldn't do anything about it. So you know what I did? I persevered, training day and night while you dozed off on your pedestal you claim was higher than the clouds. This is what I always wanted, what I waited from for nearly a year. You, me, one-on-one, no holding back. Izuku said, blushing furiously. Suddenly, in blinding speed, Izuku appeared right below Kitsuki, delivering a vicious uppercut. So hurry up and hit me already. Izuku yelled out. Kitsuki, recovering from the hit, spun around, swinging a vicious left hook at Izuku, who grabbed his arm. Suddenly, an explosion came out of the palm, forcing Izuku to pull his head back to dodge it. Kitsuki then tried to uppercut him with his free hand, but Izuku dodged that one as well. Lifting Kitsuki over his shoulders, he threw him over his shoulder, slamming him into the cement floor. Before Kitsuki could get up, however, Izuku took advantage of the opening and kicked him in the stomach, knocking him back down, coughing. Come on. Is that all you got? Izuku yelled at him. Kitsuki gritted his teeth and let out a roar as his explosion quirk ran wild, creating a huge explosion. Yeah. That's the spirit. Keep at it. Izuku said as he looked upon the destruction Kitsuki made. You were always below me, always inferior, but despite all of that, you still try to help me. Your idiotic smile, clinging onto me like you think you're my equal, despite my numerous denials. It pisses me off. Kitsuki yelled out as a murderous smile appeared on his face as explosions surrounded the area, blowing Izuku back. Meanwhile, back on the roof, Iida stood by the bomb. Izuku is really into his villain role, so I guess it's only fitting to follow suit, right? In order to become a hero I must cloak myself in darkness. Thought Iida as he turned towards Achako. I am the ultimate evil. Iida said, trying way too hard to sound menacing, making her chuckle. It would appear that you have come, no matter, my compatriot will have your friend taken care of any minute now. As for you, I enacted a counter strategy and removed everything on the floor. Continued the acting villain, you've miscalculated hero muhahaha. You're really committing to your role, aren't you? Back downstairs, the two rivals were neck and neck, attempting to find an opening to attack, but every time Izuku slowed down time, he found himself in an awkward position. Soon he started to run out of breath, allowing Kitsuki to deliver an explosive punch to his abdomen, burning his suit and revealing his bare chest. That's it, Kakin, show me the rage you feel when I ridiculed you. Come on. I'm still standing. Izuku yelled out, despite coughing out blood. Suddenly, Kitsuki raised one of his hands. With pleasure. Izuku's eyes widened as his analyst mind allowed him to piece things together. Even the observers, including All Might, figured out what was to come. Kitsuki. Stop. Are you trying to kill him? All Might yelled at into the intercom. Shut up, you old fart. I don't give a shit anymore if I win or not. Go to hell, Deku. Kitsuki yelled as he pulled the pin, launching a huge amount of nitroglycerin at him. Izuku, witnessing the initial blast, quickly ducked under cover as a massive chunk of the building was blown away. Even Iida and Achako felt it on the top floor. That blast was aimed directly at me. He really was trying to kill me. Izuku said to himself, comping back to his senses as a nostalgic rage returned to him. That's it. For attempting murder, Team D is disqualified. All Might called out. I don't give a crap. Kitsuki yelled, loading up another shot. Deku. You're all mine. Kitsuki yelled out, ignoring All Might's calls. That's it, I'm calling this off. All Might said until a different voice was heard. Don't, I got this. The voice said. Izuku. You need to get out of there. Katsuki's going to kill me. Yeah, I knew, and thus, this will be a much more realistic training exercise. Replied Izuku. Izuku, why was All Might could get out before the feed was cut? I'm surprised you're not pissing yourself. Said Katsuki, reloading a second round. Of course not, in fact, since life and death doesn't matter between us anymore. Izuku said in a far more composed manner, mind if I bent the rules a bit? Suddenly, reaching into his robe, he pulled out the syringe, which caught Katsuki's eye, who launched the second round directly at Izuku. A loud explosion was heard as the cameras on the inside were destroyed. All Might, after seeing this, got off his chair and hurried to the site where the two were fighting. As the smoke cleared, Katsuki regained his senses, not seeing any signs of life, he called out. Deku? No response. Alright Katsuki, keep calm. This is not happening, you hear me? This didn't just happen, Katsuki said to himself, trying to keep calm. Suddenly, he heard something coming out of the rumbles, and he, for a brief moment, felt a sense of relief. Deku? Suddenly, his pupils dilated as the thing that crawled out of the rumbles vanished, and in the blink of an eye, he looked down to see a sharp claw lodged in his abdomen. The thing still had the same facial features as the student, but its skin was a light purple and his body much more muscular. His eyes were pitch black with red pupils and his tongue hung out, blackened at the tip. Flashback. What was in the syringe you're gonna give me, boss? Izuku asked All for One. It's not complete yet, but it still works fine. I modified the trigger drug that buffs quirks by mixing it with my All for One's ability to give other quirks, effectively creating a quirk injection steroid hybrid. Replied the boss. Is it permanent? Asked Toga, concerned about Izuku's safety. No, only temporary, but when injected, for a brief period of time, the user will become so powerful that they lose their more human aspects. Replied All for One. So they can turn into Nomus? Asked Toga. If that was the case, then I wouldn't have given it to you. You see, unlike Trigger, the user of this new drug is still conscious, but it does have a said list of drawbacks. Heavy strain on your body, memory blanks, but its most important weakness. It burns out my quirk after use. Looks like the whole time slow thing was fun while it lasted. Izuku thought. Katsuki was still in shock. What are you? Katsuki uttered as blood poured out of his wound. Izuku said nothing and only gave him a grin, causing Katsuki to get angrier. Tell me, you monster. Katsuki yelled as he shot Izuku with a barrage of explosion. But as the smoke cleared, he saw not a body, but what appeared to be a turtle. Hard shell. This was only one of the new quirks Izuku received with the injection. His left hand started to contort as he raised his arm and pointed it at Katsuki. By the time he was pointing at him, his arm had morphed into a metallic amalgamation of guns, missile launchers and blades. This was his second quirk. Mechanization. Arsenal mayhem. Izuku fired a barrage of scrap metal bullets, blades and other metallic bits as Katsuki scrambled to avoid the upcoming barrage. Sadly, he tripped due to the amount of rubbles lying nearby and fell, allowing the metal storm to catch up and consume his entire body. That should do it. Izuku said to himself. Suddenly, his eyes dilated as the man he thought was dead came charging out of the debris, bloody with metallic bits lodged in his flesh as he regained the murderous smile he had earlier. Izuku, seeing this, smiled back. Haha. Yes. Come at me. We will finish this, guns blazing. Let's end this together. In a Hail Mary of glory and death. Izuku yelled out as his size and muscles practically doubled. Deku. Kachayan. One of Izuku's arms turned red hot and started to glow with hair, and spikes sprouted out of his other arm, while both of Katsuki's arms were glowing with nitroglycerin. As the two of them clashed, the whole building collapsed while Iida and Ichako was fighting, and the shockwave shattered the windows of all nearby building within a half-mile radius. What was that? Ichako said to herself. Take my hand. Iida called out as the building collapsed, trapping the two under a mountain of rumble. The building's collapse was the mere beginning though, as at the center of the pile of rubble lay Izuku and Katsuki, still exchanging a flurry of fists. Muta 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 muta. Were the sounds each respective fighters were making. Izuku was slowly gaining the advantage as he heard Katsuki's hands crack from hitting his body's hard shell too much and felt that he was nearly at his limit. Sadly, he also felt the drug losing effect. I've got to end this, and fast. Izuku said to himself. Just try. Kitsuki said, taking advantage of the opening to land a solid hit of Izuku's cheek. Izuku spat out some blood as he felt his hard shell softening. His left arm was losing heat while his right was getting duller and his overall muscles and skin returning to normal. Knowing there was not much time left, he needed to formulate a plan. "What's wrong, Deku?" Out of steam, Kitsuki asked. Suddenly, Izuku's punches just stopped. Not wanting to lose his advantage, he quickly delivered a quick barrage of explosive punches. With its strikes, Izuku was knocked off his feet. Kitsuki, seeing this, rose his hands in victory. Suddenly, Izuku's eyes opened up as he gave out a smile. "Don't celebrate too early now," Izuku said as he held his breath, slowing everything down to a near stop. "It was a gamble, but I needed to stop punching to catch my breath. Now Kaken, you're done for." Ducking under Kitsuki's fist and channeling all of his might into his right arm. Metallic red-hot spikes out of his right arm that regained its size and mass as he delivered a sky-shattering punch to Kitsuki's stomach. With time still in slow motion and with the last remnants of his borrowed quirks vanishing, he knew it was only a matter of time before his time-slow quirk also disappeared. Slowing walking away from the Kitsuki's imploding stomach, he counted down the time before time itself speeds up to normal. 5. Izuku looked around to make sure no one else saw anything. 4. He dug under some rumble and dragged out Ichako and Iida. 3. He dug out his phone, miraculously still working, and typed a message to the league, claiming he needed a new quirk. While he knew the message will only be sent after time speeds up, he still put the phone back into his pocket. 2. He took a good look at his state and at Kitsuki's. His entire top half was naked and covered with bruises and burns. Blood leaked from his head, going all the way down to his shoulder, that was also bleeding. 2 of his ribs were broken, as well as his left femur, which was cracked, and he had a really nasty burn coming from his right arm, which was unused to parry Kitsuki's initial blast. Kitsuki himself wasn't looking that much better, however. Metallic bits were lodged into his shoulders, his sides and left knee. He had 3 stab wounds from the initial stab Izuku took at his, as just as bruised as burnt, maybe noticeably less, but still severely. And was soon gonna have a lot of internal injuries. 1. Izuku sat cross-legged on the ground in front of Kitsuki and waited. 0. Time came back to normal as Kitsuki coughed out a carpet of blood and was sent flying through what was left of the building, smashing through the piles of debris on the way before getting embedded into the wall head first. His body was limp, unconscious. "Yes, I did it," said Izuku. Izuku, Iida and Ichako came to their senses. "Are you okay?" asked Ichako, looking like a worried mother. "Yeah, ask that to him," Izuku said, pointing at Kitsuki. "Wait, you beat him?" Iida asked. "Yeah, wasn't easy though, the kid is nuts," Izuku said. Suddenly, Iida and Ichako both hugged him at the same time. "We're so glad you're safe," Ichako said. "Ah, it's fine, looks like it's all over now," said Izuku. Soon after, All Might along with a bunch of other pro heroes showed up. Recovery Girl was also there to attend to their wounds. According to her, Kitsuki might be experiencing some memory loss due to the hit to the head he received, which Izuku was glad to hear, as he wouldn't remember him using the drug. Izuku and Kitsuki were later taken to the infirmary that day, as the training continued as normal. Towards the end of the day, however, Izuku found out that he wasn't gonna be able to go home due to his injuries, and had to stay the night. He was fine with the news, but bummed he wouldn't be able to return to the hideout. It may seem corny, but the League of Villains were like his second family now. He knows every member very well, made friends with a lot of them, even Shigaraki, and did several team-up missions with them. So despite staying at the infirmary and being showered in praises given by other students, who came in a pro congratulate him for beating Kitsuki, whom everyone agreed was a jerk, he missed Kurogiri's supportive attitude, twice his split personality. Spinner constant boasting and even Shigaraki and his Shigaraki-ness. But most importantly, he missed Himiko Toga. Her smile, playfulness and personality was always something he enjoyed after a long day at school. Later that night, when Izuku was lying in bed, however, he saw the window slip open, and the person who opened it made his almost leap with joy. "I enjoyed your fight, Izuku-kun, you were pretty wild," said a familiar voice. "Toga, it's so nice to see you," Izuku said. "Did you like my costume design?" asked Izuku. "Yeah, property of HT was a little too much though," replied Izuku. As Toga sat in his bed, she leaned towards Izuku, placing her hand in his chest. "You must have went through quite some hard time fighting that jerk, mind if I help you relax?" asked Toga. If you're gonna tickle me when I'm helpless, then go ahead, but note that my revenge will be 10 times. Before Izuku could finish however, Toga leaned in and kissed him. Izuku did not protest, he wrapped his working arm around Toga as she leaned closer and closer to Izuku's bare chest as her finger traced down towards his lower abdomen and was getting even lower. I'm glad to have met you Toga, joining the League of Villains was the best choice I've ever made. Yeah, I love you too, Izuku-kun. Chapter 14. Izuku woke up to the sound of a door opening, most likely the entrance door to the infirmary, considering the fact that besides the bathroom, that was the only other door. Out the door came Todoroki, Iida, Kirishima, and a bunch of other male students, and, to his confusion, gave him a thumbs up. Next to him, he saw Toga, sound asleep on his bed, she was on the side of it, kinda like how someone falls asleep on a desk, but his time, the desk was the bed. It didn't take long for him to piece together the puzzle. "Congrats Izuku," whispered Kirishima. "You got yourself a girlfriend. Lucky," whispered Mineta in a slightly jealous tone. Izuku blushed in embarrassment as he wasn't ready for another visit, especially since he just woke up. A sudden realization came to mind that made him jump. "Wait, were you guys watching us sleep?" Izuku whispered back. "Took a picture and everything, you two look so cute from side to side," whispered Kaminari, flashing 2 thumbs up. "Don't worry about it, I made sure no one sent anything online without your permission, privacy is everything after all," whispered Iida, who noticed the sudden anger that drew upon Izuku's face. "Then why are you guys still here? Leave," Izuku said in a slightly louder tone. "Oh. Right. Sorry," big guys replied, slipping away. "You know, you're adorable when you try acting as your old self all the while trying to be aggressive," Toga said. "Wait, you were awake?" asked Izuku. "I wanted to see how you would interact with students without breaking character, since, you know, you kinda went nuts when fighting Kitsuki," replied Toga. "Oh right. What about Kaken?" asked Izuku. "Suspended for a few days for attempted murder," replied Toga. "Only a few days, this school is so busted," Izuku said, punching his bed, which brought him to a sudden realization. "Yeah, we injected you with a temporary healing factor to make your arm heal quicker, after all, tomorrow's when we're gonna be carrying out the assassination. We'll need you there," explained Toga. "Oh really? Everything's already prepared. That was quick," replied Izuku. "Shigaraki seemed very eager about this plan, I guess that made him work faster," said Toga. "Ah, I see," Izuku said. Recovery girl came through the door as the two were chatting, handing him a tray with breakfast ready-made. Just then, she noticed Toga. "Oh? I didn't know we had visitors, a shame, maybe I should have brought in 2 trays." "Ah, no, it's fine, I just ate," Toga explained. "Quit lying, it's currently 6:15 AM, you would have had to make and eat breakfast, then come all the way here at 5:40 at least in record time," replied recovery girl. "No, it's fine, I'll share my breakfast with her," Izuku replied. "Fine, just remember, class starts at 8 o'clock and seeing that you've recovered, I think it's best to not miss out," she said, putting the tray down and leaving the room. Izuku stared at the plate, there were scrambled eggs, sausage, 2 slices of toast, hash brown and orange juice. He went for the fork, but Toga took it first. Before he could say anything, he noticed some eggs heading towards him. "Say ah," said Toga, smiling. "Toga, I can do it myself," Izuku replied. "I know, but I still want to do this," replied Toga. "Please stop, it's embarrassing," said Izuku. "Aw, don't be such a baby, it's not like we're being watched or anything," replied Toga. Little did they know, the door was a sliver open, and even though one couldn't see it, they were being watched by someone no one could have seen. "She's spoon-feeding him," Toru squealed. "Kaya. That's so adorable," squealed the rest of the girls that were on the other side of the wall. "This is so wrong," mumbled Momo. "Then why are you even here?" asked Mina. "I wanted to make sure Izuku was doing well. If Kitsuki was here, I would have done the same," the student said with an embarrassed tone. "Yeah, sure you will. Even if he was there we wouldn't visit him," complained Jiro, "he's just so-so." "Yeah, he's a dick, ribbit," Sai said nonchalantly. Back inside, Izuku finally gave in and had himself a mouthful of eggs. He thanked the cook in his mind as Toga then took one of the sausage. "You know, I'm a big fan of sausages," Toga commented, "don't mind if I take this one." "Yeah, go ahead," replied Izuku. That was a mistake on his part, as instead of biting into the meat, like anyone would do, she started to lustfully lick the tip of the sausage, giving Izuku a seductive look while doing it. Izuku blushed nervously as she wrapped her lips around the sausage, sucking it like a lollipop as she slowly inserted the sausage deeper into her throat. Watching this happen gave Toru a nosebleed as she nearly passed out from excitement and had to be dragged back by the other watchers. "Toru. What happened?" asked Momo. "We need to leave." Toru replied, "They deserve some privacy." Meanwhile, Izuku was trying his best not to get turned on by what he was seeing, nervously munching on some toast. Okay, she's almost done with her sausage, as long as there no more phallic-looking food laying around, I should be should, Izuku thought as he noticed a fruit bowl next to the tray with a banana, some strawberries and cherries. Knowing she'd go for the bananas next, he quickly grabbed it, peeled it and ate it in less than 3 seconds. Alright, I eliminated the only remaining phallic object on the tray, now I can breathe easy, Izuku said. Geez, you really love bananas, don't you Izuku? Toga asked, reaching for the fruit bowl. Personally, I prefer the cherries. Cherries? What can she do with cherries? Asked Izuku. Suddenly, a mixture of awe and arouse hit Izuku as she, as if defying physics itself, was able to rapidly lick and balance both cherries on the tip of her tongue, flinging them around as she once again looked at Izuku with the same, lustful eyes. Was the sound she was making while licking the pair of cherries, unable to say another word, but she didn't need to, she could tell this was working. I gotta go. Izuku said, slowly getting out of bed. Toga bit into both cherries, spitting out of pit and walked up to Izuku, who seemed to be in a hurry. Hold on, you have some crumbs on your face. She said, let me take care of that for you. A shiver ran down Izuku's spine as he felt her warm tongue streak across his face, licking off the bits of toast that was stuck to his cheek. Alright Toga. I get it. You really like me. But can we do this somewhere else? This is a school for God's sakes. Asked Izuku, quivering from the intensity. Oh, what's wrong? You can take on Kitsuki yet this is too much for you? Asked Toga. Meanwhile, on the outside, Achako came to visit Izuku, but was confused why all the girls in her class were clumped up at the door, like guys peeping into a girl's locker room. All of a sudden, she could hear one of the murmur come on, kiss already. And came running towards the door. What's going on here? Achako yelled. The rest of the girls shot up in fear as they quickly closed the door. Achako. Hi, maybe now's not the time to visit Izuku, maybe come back tomorrow. Momo said as she and the rest of the girls blocked the door, making it clear that there was something they didn't want Achako to see. Let me through. Achako said, activating her quirk and making all of the girls float to the ceiling. Quickly running to the door, Izuku and Toga's intimate moment was broken from the sound of Toru yelling. Izuku. Hide her. Before he could register what that was, Achako came barging through the door to see Izuku, nothing but his briefs, getting cuddled from behind by a girl she's never met. Izuku. Who's that? Achako asked trembling. Ira-san. Why are you here? I was just leaving in fact. Izuku said, hinting at Toga that this was her cue to leave. As Toga left the room, Achako and Izuku stared awkwardly at each other in silence. Izuku didn't know what to say, but he knew what she was thinking. Izuku. Here it come thought Izuku, bracing for a slap. You could have told me you had a girlfriend. Achako said in an embarrassed tone. Wait, you're not mad or jealous? Asked Izuku, confused at her sudden approach. Me? Jealous how come? I mean I like you and everything, and I don't mind being your girlfriend either, but I just didn't know you were dating someone else. I mean, we've known each other for hardly a week. Explained Achako. Izuku wiped off the cold sweat from his forehead, knowing that she wasn't that kind of girl, it would have caused him a lot of trouble, especially in his future plans. Anyhow, knowing this, Izuku was able to build up the courage to change the subject. Hey, I know everyone's been pawning the attention on me, beating Kitsuki and all but you did good too. Izuku said. Achako let out a nervous giggle. Thanks she said. Anyways, if you have nothing left to say, maybe leave me to do my things. I still haven't gotten dressed you know, and I don't think I'm comfortable in nothing but my undies. Said Izuku. Oh. Right. Sorry. Achako said with embarrassment as she quickly ran out the room. Can you let us down now? Asked Mina, still stuck on the roof. Sadly, Achako just ran past them without letting them down. Izuku, fully dressed, followed afterwards not even noticing the girls stuck on the roof like helium balloons. Ooh help. Anyone? The second Izuku came into class, he was barraged by students congratulating him. Apparently they all saw him and Toga together and must have put two and two together. Even Iida bowed down to him, even though Izuku insisted that that wasn't necessary. Suddenly, a sleeping bag fell from the roof as Aizawa came out of it, looking groggy as ever. "Okay now class, take your seats," the teacher ordered as everyone quickly took their seats, and Izuku. "Yeah?" Izuku asked in a nervous tone, thinking that the teacher might be on to him. "I heard you have a girlfriend now. Congrats," Aizawa said as his sleepy but intimidating face shifted to a lively one in a millisecond. "You know about it too," Izuku yelled out. "Of course. It's the talk of the school. You're already popular for wrecking Kitsuki, and now this. You might as well be the next #1 hero in terms of popularity," said Kirishima. "Alright, enough of that." Aizawa's face returned to serious. "Today, we have some serious business to take care of." Most of the class prayed to All Might that this wouldn't be another brutal pop quiz. "We're picking a class president. Such a normal school thing," thought most of the class. Suddenly, everyone was on top of each other's heads, trying to be the class president. From the back of the classroom, Iida spoke up. "Leading the many is a task of heavy responsibility, but ambition does not equate ability. His sacred office demands the trust of its constitution. If it were to. So basically you want us to vote for the class president, got it?" Izuku said, cutting Iida off. "Hey. I wasn't finished," said Iida. Izuku stood up from his seat, looking at Iida with a sincere attitude. "Democracy may be a good solution. But sometimes, votes can be a faulty system, like times when everyone's a candidate. Do you really think one would just use his vote on someone else instead of himself? No, votes are only possible when only a few candidates are available compared to the number of voters. In other words, if we were to vote, there would be a need for only 2 candidates to prevent heavy self-bias. In other words, what I suggest isn't a campaign to determine who would be the class president, as that would take way too long and eat up our time," Izuku explained, before turning to Aizawa. "So I suggest we simulate an evacuation drill and see out of all of us who is the most composed, cooperative, patient and calm." The class went silent to Izuku's statement. "Frankly, I'm not that serious about such an event, so sorry, no simulation," replied Aizawa. "Hey. But Izuku's got the better idea, maybe he should be class president," said Zero. "Yeah, I mean, he seems calm, composed, even Aizawa couldn't faze him, and he even convinced a teacher to exempt him from the elimination test," commented Momo. "Then it's decided. Izuku's will be our class president," cheered Achako. A drop of sweat ran down Izuku's neck. "Wow, that was easy," he said to himself. Later that day, the hideout seemed a little more crowded than Izuku remembered. Walking up to Kurogiri, he asked for the usual and scanned the room for Toga to return the favor. Out of the corner of his eye, however, he saw 2 familiar figure return. "Yo. Izu bro," called out a familiar voice. "Hey. Sachi. Irina. How's it been?" asked Izuku. "I heard you were planning an attack on Yuuei," said Irina. "You can't just do that and not call me." "Hey. I specially asked for only Toga and Nomu and a lot of fodders. And I knew that putting you 2 in the fodder category would be too damaging for your pride, Irina," explained Izuku. Irina slammed both her hands on the table. "Hey punk, call me a fodder one more time and see what happens," Irina said with a pissed off tone. "See? Point proven," Izuku said with a smug look on his face. "He's got a point, you know, you really do have an inferiority complex with everyone. Or was it a superiority complex? I dunno, I'm not good with these complex figures of speech," replied Sachi. Suddenly, Irina grabbed Izuku by the neck. "Remember when you put that knife to my neck? I heard you just lost your quirk. Payback time," she said with a pissed off tone as she was about to activate her quirk. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a knife came flying in as it came within an inch to the back of Irina's neck, leaving a small nick in her nape. "Don't you dare do anything to my Izuku," said a pissed off Toga. Turning around, Irina turned to the short blonde and stared down upon her. "Don't fuck with me, young lady. He insulted my status and now he'll pay the..." Before Irina could finish, Izuku tripped her, putting her in a chokehold. "Come on, you wanted payback. Go ahead," he said, making sure to completely immobilize both of her arms. As Irina tried to wrestle out of the hold, Izuku just strangled her even harder, to the point where Irina's neck was turning purple. Hey. Watch it. You're gonna kill her," Sachi said, separating the two. Irina backed to the other end of the counter, panting heavily. "You got lucky," she said, gasping for air. Izuku walked up to her and picked her up, kneeing her in the stomach as she dropped to the ground, writhing in pain. "Listen, Irina, it's about damn time you learned that you're not the top dog here, and the only way to be a top dog here is to work for it, so start by getting rid of that obnoxious attitude," Izuku said in a bossing tone. Irina looked at him with rebellious eyes, which granted her a kick to the face. The rest of the villains watched as Izuku mercilessly pounded Irina to submission, as Sachi was hiding behind a table in fear. After she finally passed out, Izuku wiped the sweat off his forehead and walked back towards Toga, who was trembling in excitement. "I think I just came a little," Toga said, witnessing the villain side of Izuku at its full glory. "Yo, Sachi," Izuku called out in a much more calm tone. "Why yo, boss?" Sachi nervously peeked out of his cover. "Tell Irina when she wakes up that she'll have 15 hours to prepare for the assassination tomorrow. And tell her that if everything goes according to plan, she can be promoted to Vanguard," said Izuku, picking up Toga in his arms bridal style. "Hey boss. By the way, where are you taking her?" asked Sachi, pointing at the girl that looked like she was at her peak. "She seemed kinda ill, so, as a leader, we'll relieve her stress," said Izuku, with a smile as they went upstairs. Sachi blushed as his dirty mind knew what that could only mean and picked up his unconscious partner. "Come on, Rina, we have a big date tomorrow." However, in a room in the basement of the hideout, Shigaraki was not pleased to hear his news. "What do you mean I am no longer a viable successor?" Shigaraki cried into a TV screen. "It means what it means, sorry Tamura, but Izuku is showing much more promise than you. He's a better leader, tactician, analyst and scout, he's more compassed, patient, and has led operations several times more successful than anything we have ever pulled off, and has a far deeper well of potential than you. I'm sorry, but until you can prove me otherwise, my decision will be left unchanged," replied the voice on screen before the screen itself went black. Shigaraki punched the screen, making it crack, and yelled out in anger. "Not a viable successor, I'll show him. The day we assassinate Eraserhead, I'll be the one to kill not only him, but even All Might. Just you wait," Shigaraki said to himself as the TV started to rust and corrode. Chapter 15. Bonus chapter. This chapter takes place between chapter 9 and 11. Weekends are usually like a short vacation for most teens, and it seems that Izuku is no different. Even after joining the League of Villains, there's nothing like a good 2 days of just kicking back and relaxing. While he liked his job of killing heroes, information gathering, doing business with other villains, even he can't deny that it was still tiring. Calling a day or two off would be a nice change of pace from his usual grind. Suddenly, he heard the jingle of his phone and went to pick it up as he came out of the shower. A smile drew on his face as he saw the user who sent him the text. "Hey Izuku, doing anything?" The text was from Toga, who had easily the most ridiculous username ever. In fact, he didn't even add her to his contacts until she had to physically tell him that she was LUVLUVKILLIKOT0 ga when he asked her why she wasn't sending him a friend. "Nah, my day off, you," Izuku texted back. "I'm bored," Toga replied nearly immediately. Izuku noticed that he still didn't get dressed and was even still wet from his shower, so he decided to tease he a bit. "Maybe this can keep you occupied." 3 Izuku texted before sending her a photo of him butt naked with his towel going down so low he might as well be wearing a loincloth. He waited for nearly half a minute, still no reply. Thinking she might have left, he put his phone down and got dressed. Halfway through putting his shirt on, however, he received another text, but this time, things were different. "Hello Izuku, this is Kurogiri. I was passing by to clean the countertop when I saw Toga passed out with a fountain of blood shooting from her nose. What the hell?" Izuku chuckled at the comment. "Sorry about that, she said she was bored, so I sent a special something to keep her busy for the next couple of hours, didn't you see it?" Izuku typed with a smug grin on his face. There was a 10-second wait, followed by "What the hell did you send her?" Izuku fell over in laughter, dropping on his bed. "Hey. Answer me, young man," Kurogiri texted furiously. "I drink at your bar at least 3 days a week, and yet this isn't okay for you?" Izuku typed back. While he didn't get any replies, he could tell Kurogiri was mumbling kids these days under his breath. After a solid minute, another text was sent, this time, an image. "Payback bitch," Toga, who regained consciousness, typed, followed by a panty shot. Pathetic, mumbled Izuku under his breath before sending it under the form of text. "Wah?" Her not turned on. Yuuei. Toga typed back. As much as Izuku wanted to reply no you, he knew that the brilliant hero killer Mightless would never write such a primitive comeback, so instead he thought off something much more juicy. No you. That'll show her. Izuku said to himself. No you and her mom gay. Toga replied. Oh, so we're playing that game huh? Well then Izuku cracked his fingers. Her dad lesbian. Her sister mister. Her granny a tranny. Her brother a mother. Izuku typed out faster than lightning. Got anything you like to add? Izuku said with a vibrant smile. You hot, not. Toga replied. Okay, you got me. Izuku said, typing it down. Well that sure was weird. Toga replied. It was a good time killer though. Izuku replied, not a bad way to make time pass, knowing that we're not killing anyone today. Actually, I do have plans for the day. Toga replied. Izuku lifted an eyebrow. Really? Indulge me. He retyped. After that, he could see the LUVLUVKILLIKOT0 ga is typing text appear on screen for minutes on end, like she was writing an entire novel or something. It was clear, she was nervous about something and couldn't say it. Whatever it is, just make it simple. Izuku typed, trying to make things easier. Would you go on a date with me? Toga typed out moments later. Izuku was stunned by her comment, not because she asked him out on a date, but because she took so long to answer him. From experience, she was always the kind of girl that was shameless and unpredictable. Seeing this side of her was really a surprise. Okay, at what time? And where? He asked back. Does Sunbuck sound good? Nowhere too major, and it's not like I can afford the fancy places either. Replied Toga. Izuku hesitated for a moment. He liked the girl, just, not to that point, okay, maybe to that point, but he hasn't really felt comfortable revealing such information. Having her confess just seemed odd to him. 2 p.m, I'll be waiting. Izuku replied. Sweet, see ya here. She texted back almost instantly. Izuku arrived 1 hour early at Sunbuck's because he wanted to surprise her, but to his surprise, she was already there. Heya. Izuku-un, Toga called out. Izuku went to her seat, admiring her outfit. She was wearing a beanie and pink sunglasses, with a denim jacket with a tight black shirt, under that says "Don't read if you're a guy" written on the breast area, which was ironic, since that was the first thing he saw in Reed, and white skinny jeans. Wow Toga, looking good. Izuku replied. Thanks, picked out everything myself. Replied Toga, tilting her head and giving Izuku a heartwarming smile. The two of them ordered a drink, Izuku a mocha latte and Toga, a iced cappuccino. While waiting for their drinks, Izuku saw the waiter's name tag and instantly recognized the guy. Hey wait a minute, isn't that someone you know? Asked Toga, confused. L'Oreal? Like, the handsome hero L'Oreal? I thought I killed the guy. I don't recall you ever dealing with no L'Oreal, replied Toga. That was a long time ago, before I even became a villain. Replied Izuku. Really? Shouldn't attacking a hero automatically make you a villain? Asked Toga. Well, I think stabbing the dude in the chest was what begun my life as a villain. He answered. Really now? Well, tell me, what were you like before you decided to don the persona of Mightless? Asked Toga. Izuku shushed her the second she mentioned his villain name. What are you doing? Do you want to give away my identity? Asked Izuku, whispering. Toga leaned back. Sorry. She said quickly, making sure no one else heard her. However, the waiter gave the two a very suspicious look. You look familiar. He said, giving Izuku a suspicious look. Izuku, trying his best not to make direct eye contact, tried to lie and say that he doesn't recognize the man, but in doing so, nearly fell over. The waiter, seeing this, extended his hair to help the kid up. Toga, on the other hand, just watched the two and chuckled. As L'Oreal helped up the kid, he wrapped his hair around his waist to prevent him from moving and started to examine him. I really feel like I've seen you somewhere, he said. Izuku, looking towards Toga, moved his lips, praying that she was a good lip reader. Toga help me, was what he tried to say. Toga, on the other hand, flashed a thumbs up. Izuku, thinking she got the picture, felt a sign of relief. At least, he did for a second, then it all went away as she pulled out her phone and took a picture. Toga. Stop. No picture. I swear to God if you take a picture and send it back to the league, I'll. Izuku whispered. What was that? L'Oreal said in a suspicious tone. Suddenly, a voice was heard from inside the shop. Hey Jin. Stop intimidating our customers and get back to work. yelled the manager, who came to sort everything out. Suddenly, L'Oreal, letting go of Izuku, quickly ran to apologize with his boss. Izuku, letting out a huge breath as he wiped off the sweat from his forehead with his sleeves, ran to Toga, who recorded the whole thing, giggling. "Come on Toga, we're going," Izuku said in a salty tone. "Oh, don't be a baby Izuku, you know it was funny," she said, showing him the image with the caption "Me when I don't cut my hair for a year versus my friend who didn't cut his hair yesterday" written on it. "That's not funny," Izuku said, although he really couldn't hold back a chuckle. "Hey. You laughed," Toga pointed out, playfully shoving him. Izuku scratched the back of his head. "Okay, it was a little funny. Wow, they really stepped up their game with the special effects. That scene with the Zodiac killer impaling the guy, it looked so real," commented Toga, stepping out of movie theater with Izuku. "Yeah, the movie itself was so-so though," Izuku commented. "I mean, they really downplayed the genius behind the guy. A man who was never caught to this day, made a background character to some stupid heroes." Izuku was always a wuss when it came to horror movies. In fact, he assumed Toga took him to one because she knew that those kinds of films terrified him. Although, he was surprised at how boring the movie was if you were afraid of jump scares. In fact, halfway through the movie, he recalled falling asleep and leaning onto Toga, the kind of thing that would happen when watching romance films. "Hey. Look at that, an arcade, it's been a while since I've been to one of those," Toga said, running towards the entrance while Izuku was dragged along. "Wait a minute Toga. I'm still not finished with my popcorn. I paid like 700 yen, $6.5 for it," Izuku yelled as he got dragged along, spilling a trail of buttery popcorn. Inside the arcade, Izuku excused Toga and headed to the bathrooms. Took him longer than usual though, number 2, go figure. When coming out however, she was nowhere to be seen. Worried, he ran around the place, yelling her name. Suddenly, he saw a huge crowd gathered near the Dance Dance Revolution machine. Pushing through the crowd, the corners of his mouth lifted as he witnessed his date at her most elegant. Wow. This girl is kicking ass. Not only did she just beat Trix, the best dancer around here, but she's about to insert her name to the top of the leaderboard. Izuku was mesmerized as Toga elegantly twisted and spun with grace. He can feel her passion, energy as she matched the on-screen model perfectly, like it was her shadow. One move after another executed flawlessly as her opponent struggled to keep up. 992,000, 993,000, 994,000, 995,000. She was about to get a perfect million. No, she was about to get over a perfect million. The crowd cheered as she danced like a fairy in the wind. The song was nearing its end and the crowd was counting down to her perfect million score. 996,000. 997,000. Izuku counted along. 998,000. 999,000. Toga heard him, she smiled. Izuku noticed, he smiled back. 1,000,000. The crowd cheered. As they were cheering for her however, Izuku suddenly remembered, running in like she was about to die, he cried out. "You're missing one more," Izuku said as everyone noticed a sudden last arrow falling. As Toga realized it however, Izuku ran in, stepping on the tile at the exact right time. 1,000,001. Congratulations, the announcer in-game said. The room went silent, then a loud cheer was heard as the crowd threw the 2 in the air. Toga, while airborne, looked at Izuku with a grateful expression drawn on her face. As the 2 got down, they hugged each other. "Thanks," Toga whispered. "No prob, Toga," Izuku replied as the 2 turned to the crowd and bowed. As they continued down the road, sakura blossoms started to pop up more and more, and before they knew it, they were in the middle of a pink petal rain. As Izuku and Toga traveled down the path, a group of people followed in the shadows, spying on them almost. "Wow, I didn't realize that the sakuras were blossoming early this year. It's really beautiful, don't you think Toga?" asked Izuku. Looking at Toga however, he noticed that she was taking on a more somber tone. "Yeah, they really are beautiful. Hey Toga, are you alright?" asked Izuku. Toga turned to him with a crooked smile, like she was trying to hide something. "And no, it's fine," Toga replied. "Toga, are you really trying to hide something from me?" Izuku asked. "You know I'm a master of deducing." Toga's hands trembled. It's just. "Come on, say it," mumbled the spies, looking at them from a distance. "Come on Toga, just say it," Izuku said. Suddenly, Toga hugged him out of the blue, clutching his chest. I never took pleasure in anything else other than watching others suffer. And even though they never say it outright, I know there isn't anyone in the league that actually likes me. It's either out of fear or pity, and I don't blame them, as I like messing with them on a daily basis. For someone like you, despite everything I put you through, to still put up with someone like me. I'm so happy I finally found a destined friend, my soulmate if you will. Toga said as tears of joy streamed down her face. Oh my god. This is actually happening. Another one of the spies whispered in excitement. Toga. Izuku muttered in shock, I never knew I meant so much to you. You didn't before. I wanted to bug you for as long as I could until you two decided you had enough of me. After all, no one would want to be friends with a sadist, right? It's just an obsession that I can't help, a curse that drives me to always be alone, treating people like playthings. But you accepted me, put up with me and everything, Izuku. I started off seeing you like another toy to mess with, but now I see you like a person. But now, I don't know what to do. It's been so long since I've talked to someone I felt on my level, someone with feelings I don't want to hurt. I've tried to interact with you, but all I can muster was the occasional thanks. Toga continued, Izuku I low. Before Toga could finish however, Izuku hugged her close, embracing her in his warmth. I know. Izuku said, making an unintentional reference on the way. Izuku Toga uttered. And thus, the two kissed each other, locking mouths for the first time under the sakura trees and the glistening sunset. Yes. A sudden cheer was heard as the pursuers hopped out of cover. Kurogiri. Dabi, what in the blazes are you two doing here? Asked Izuku. We wanted to see how the date went. Explained Kurogiri, so we followed you, the entire league followed you too. What? Toga shouted out. Yeah, Spinner, Magni and Twice were at the cafe, Mustard and Muscular were at the theater, and Mr. Compress and Moonfish were at the arcade. How much of our date did you manage to observe? Izuku said in a mixed angry and shocked tone. Kurogiri, a tad bit nervous, mumbled out. All of it? Toga and Izuku looked at each other. I'm murdering Dabi, said Toga. Then I'll take Kurogiri, replied Izuku. The two villains, knowing what's to come, started to run as our couple chased them off to the sunset. A real oddball ending to their date. Chapter 16. Having woke up late, Izuku ran rapidly downstairs and out the door, not even saying good morning to his mother. He needed to make it to school early to set up for the assassination of his homeroom teacher. All for One was nice enough to tell him the new quirk he received this time around, so Izuku didn't need to get punched by Kitsuki again to figure out what his new quirk was. Still a mile left from his meet-up spot where Toga should be waiting, he decided to immediately try out his new quirk in order to prepare. Leaping into the air, he channeled his newfound quirk's ability, forming two miniature cyclones under his feet, boosting his speed as he hovered a good 4 inch above ground level, cruising down the street at the speed of a bicycle. Closing in on Yuuei, he saw that the buses have already arrived and were waiting at the school door. Remembering which one he was getting in, he walked up to bus number 105 as the door automatically opened, revealing Toga as the driver. Are all the preparations finished? Asked Izuku. Just waiting on you, boss. Replied Toga. Alright, remember your assignment? Izuku asked to the back seat. Crystal clear. Two voices responded. Alright, then sit things out for now. I'll warn you if anything goes wrong. Replied Izuku. Class started like normal, math, history, lunch break, the usual. Mid-break, Izuku contacted his squad, signaling that it was time to take action, as today was their special hero training course. Arriving in class, Aizawa seemed more lively than usual. The day will be an especially special course, from flood simulations to earthquakes, we are currently dealing with rescue training. He explained. Sounds like another rough day. Commented Denki. Also, it's up to you whether or not you want to wear costumes, as some are ill-suited for these kinds of activity. The site is sort of remote, so we will be going by bus. Continued the bag-eyed teacher, so good luck to all. As Izuku made his way outside with the rest of the class, Achako ran up to him, confused why he didn't wear his costume. Oh, my costume? It got destroyed by Kitsuki, so I'm wearing my gym uniform instead. It's a lot more mobile and versatile after all. Izuku explained. Iida, being the young wanted teacher that he is, was directing everyone, ordering them to enter in an orderly fashion. As Midoriya entered, he noticed him, slumped over one of the seats, after noticing it wasn't the kind of bus he thought it would be, embarrassed. As the bus started rolling, the students were chattering about all sorts of stuff while Izuku stuck close to the driver, making sure she wasn't acting too out of line. To think of it, we never actually figured out what Izuku's quirk actually was. Izuku overheard Sayu's comment. Suddenly, most of the students turned to him, eager to see what he was capable of. Asui's right, we never actually seen him fight. He got exempted from the quirk examination, and all live feeds of him fighting during the combat training were lost because Katsuki blew up the cameras. Mina commented. "Call me Sayu," replied the frog girl in the background. Suddenly, Izuku was surrounded by the entire class, waiting eagerly for him to show off what he was capable of. "Come on Izuku, show us, everyone's seen everyone's quirk in action, including my hardening, so why don't you indulge us?" asked Kirishima. "Hey. Don't pressure him. It's his quirk, he decides when to use it," Iida said with authority. Without comment, Izuku formed a small tornado in the palm of his hand. "Wind manipulation, pretty basic, but still cool," Izuku said. The rest of the class applauded at Izuku's performance. "Can you use that wind to blow the girl's skirts upwards?" asked the perverted Mineta as he was strangled by every surrounding girls. Izuku blushed, scratching the back of his head as Ochako complimented him. Suddenly, the bus sped up by an additional 30 miles per hour, rocking everyone sideways. "Hey, what the hell is the driver doing?" Kirishima yelled as Izuku cursed, forgetting how jealous Toga could get. "What is this?" Universal Studios Japan, the class shouted in unison, in awe of the sheer scale and size of the complex they were gonna be training in. Izuku looked around, there was a flood zone, a landslide zone, conflagration zone, etc. There isn't many things that can impress Izuku after all that he's been through, but this time, he could make an exception. Waiting for them at the center was their supervisor, 13. "Welcome, Class A, here, any disaster you can think of can be and has been recreated. I built this facility myself, and I call it the hero explained, striking a dramatic pose, the unforeseen simulation joint." While the class admired the space hero, who was idolized by many, Aizawa walked up to the hero. "Where's All Might? Shouldn't he be here by now?" asked Aizawa. "Yeah, about that, he's reached his limit this morning during his commune and is currently taking a breather in the break room," explained 13. "So be it, let's get started," Aizawa replied. 13 turned to the students. "Now, before we get started, I have a point to share with you, or 2, or 3, or 4. A lot of points, we get it," thought Class A. "Surely all of you know by now, my quirk is called Black Hole, a quirk that sucks in and rips objects apart." The dot-eyed astronaut started to explain. "We've seen you use it to save people in all sorts of disasters," commented Ochako. "However, my power could easily be used for killing, and I am sure a lot of you are the same. In this super-powered society, quirks are heavily controlled and monitored, but as stable as this system is, we must not forget, people will die should we misuse our quirks. Through Aizawa's physical test, you found your hidden potential, through All Might's battle training, you learned of the danger your quirk can unleash. This class will show you a new perspective, where you will learn to use your quirks to save people. Powers aren't meant to harm, and today is the day we teach you how to use them to save people," 13 continued. Izuku felt nauseous hearing her speech though, as she only mentions about quirks. While his plans didn't change, he hoped to see at least someone in Yuuei that had the idea that just maybe, quirks aren't everything, and you can still be a hero without one. But by now, it was clear, even pro-heroes only believed in the power of quirks, not that of the individual. "Alright, now, if you may, it's time we get started," Aizawa said. Meanwhile, in the control room, the security guards we found taken down, as Irina and Sachi locked the door behind them. "So, according to Izuku's plan, we are to wait until he gives the signal, then we need to crank up the power of every zone to max," Irina commented. On a yacht in the middle of the flood zone and Toga came out. She retrieved a walkie-talkie and proceeded to give the signal. "Showtime though Izuku." Suddenly, as the students were about to head off, Aizawa noticed a black portal appearing behind Izuku. His eyes widened as a man covered in black mist came out, grabbing Izuku by the neck. "What the hell? What's going on?" Izuku cried out. His acting was so realistic that everyone turned to he started to back away. "What is this? Some sort of staged event?" asked some of the students. "No everyone. Huddle up and evacuate. This isn't a drill," Aizawa yelled out, taking up a much more serious tone. "What's going on?" asked Iida. "This is a villain attack," Aizawa cried out. "They got one of the students," 13 pointed out. "I know," Aizawa said, charging towards the shadowy villain. Kurogiri. Izuku whispered soft enough so that only he could hear it. On it. Kurogiri responded as he wrapped his portal around the entire group. It was your mistake to huddle up. Kurogiri commented as the entire class was swallowed up by darkness. Aizawa, seeing their entire class disappearing, found out that he was now all alone against the villains. He let a pissed off look as he glared at Kurogiri, standing at where the class used to be. Where did you send them? Aizawa cried out in anger. Don't worry, they've been dispersed across the facility, where the simulations are supposed to take place. Don't worry, my subordinates will take care of them. Kurogiri said in a maniacal tone, holding a knife to Izuku's throat to prevent Aizawa from deactivating his quirk. Don't worry, I'm not here to kill any of them, only you. Now, if you want to see this kid alive, head to the flood zone. And with that, Izuku was dragged into the portal as Aizawa clenched his fist and ran at top speed to the flood zone. Hang on Izuku, I'm coming. Meanwhile, the other students were in the heart of the simulation joints. Momo, Kaminari and Jiro were stuck in the landslide zone that was raining down boulders like an avalanche. Iida, Mina, Shoji and Siro were warped to the wildfire zone, where flames were raging even stronger than an erupting volcano. While Kirishima, Todoroki, Ajiro and Toru got sent to the earthquake zone. Ichako, Mineta and Sai were stuck in the middle of the conflagration zone, where most of the building were raging with flames, and Kota, Sato, Yuga and Tokoyami were trapped in the blizzard zone, where the raging icy wind, hitting their raw skin, threatened to generate frostbites within seconds. Yes, I know the official zones have been notes down, but I'm too lazy to do research, so just let me take so liberties. It can't be I didn't design any of these joints to work this ferociously. I'm supposed to have a staff to keep these things from being lethal death traps. What are they doing for God's sake? 13 watched helplessly from the room as the students were struggling to stay alive from the very natural disasters they were meant to jump into. Back at the control room, Irina sat back with a bucket of popcorn, watching the pandemonium unfold before her eyes, smiling sadistically as the students were struggling for survival. Yo. Rina. You sure you don't want to have a go? One button and boom. You can send a boulder crashing down on these kids. Another one and boom. Another building collapses on them. It's freaking awesome. Sachi said, fiddling with the controls. Nah. I'd rather sit back and enjoy the fireworks. She replied with a mouthful of popcorn. Fine, suit yourself. Hey look. Isn't that the eraser head fellow we are supposed to be taking down? Sachi noticed. Well, I'll be damned, it is. Irina said, pointing at Aizawa, running to the flood zone. Looks like everything is going according to plan. Izuku said, coming out of a portal that Kurogiri formed behind the duo. Walking to the communication station, he picked up a phone and dialed Toga's number. Everything is ready? Asked Izuku through the phone. Yup. All set. Hey boss, the guy swimming to rescue you, Sachi pointed out. Alright, it's time, Kurogiri, send in the Aqua unit and Sachi, set the flood zone to max, wear him down until he reaches you. Izuku ordered both at Sachi and at Kurogiri, whom he had communications with through his earpiece. Back with Aizawa, he had almost made it halfway to the boat, where he could see Izuku, still being held captive by Kurogiri. Suddenly, the waves started picking up speed as he was plunged to the depth several times, his body flung around. What the hell? Is someone manning the controls? Why are the waves so damn strong? Suddenly, he felt a stinging pain on his ankle as he was dragged to beneath the depths. The water was stinging his eyes at first, and barrages of fists, fangs and claws hit him from all sides. Shit, I'm surrounded. Aizawa said, as his eyes started to get used to being underwater. Looking around, he saw about 7 enemies, all with mutation quirks that allowed them to outmaneuver him. As the villains surrounded him from all sides, Aizawa glared at one of them as that villain felt his gills closing. The villain tried desperately to swim up to air, but due to the waves, he was unsuccessful. 2 other aquatic creature quirk villain charged at Aizawa, punching him in the guts, face, etc. As the 2 were about to deliver their finishing blow, they noticed that their arms were tangled up by the band Aizawa kept around his neck. Just then, Aizawa stepped on one of the villain's face and pulled with all of his strength, tying the 2 villains up and had them sink to the bottom. Suddenly, a barrage of scales came flying at him, hitting him in the shoulder and releasing a cloud of blood into the water. One of the shark quirk users smelt the blood as his bloodlust reached its peak, tackling Aizawa and slamming him into the hull of the boat, making him cough out blood. Aizawa looked behind him as the remaining 3 aimed at him with their quirks. One of them was about to launch a harpoon from his gun at him, another a water javelin, and the third was preparing for another scale barrage. Meanwhile, the shark face that had him pinned against the hull of the ship opened his mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. In a moment of hesitation, Aizawa ended up erasing the quirks of the three shooters, ridding them of their ability to breathe underwater as they held their breath for dear life, thrashing around wildly. Suddenly, he screamed out in pain as the shark bit into his shoulder. He heard the sound of bones cracking as blood spurted out of his right shoulder. What's worse, he was slowly losing consciousness due to the lack of oxygen. And that was the reason why he kept the shark user intact. Knowing that sharks breathe by extracting the oxygen and water through their gills, Aizawa bit into the gills of the shark, sucking out the air and making him let go of his shoulder, screaming in pain. Aizawa then proceeded to punch him in the eye, blinding him, before putting him in a headlock and slamming him into the hull of the ship, denting it and rendering the villain unconscious. He quickly swam to the surface, using what's left of his band to lasso the railing and climbing up to the ship's deck. Getting up to the main deck, he flopped to the ground, gasping for air and coughing out a mixture of water and blood. Clenching his bleeding shoulder, he limped his way to the front, where he saw Izuku was being held captive. Making his way to the front deck, his eyes widened as he saw Izuku, lying on the floor, unconscious. "Izuku!" Aizawa cried out, running up to him. He seemed to be unconscious. In a mixture of panic and hope, he flipped him over, checking his pulse, then he checked the body for any wounds. Looking around, the villain was nowhere in sight. Letting out a breath of relief, he picked up the limp unconscious body of Izuku. "Wake up, Izuku, we got to." Before Aizawa could finish, however, Izuku sprung back to life, jamming his fingers into Aizawa's open wound. In a roar of pain, Aizawa threw him off, only to have him do a flip midair and land on his feet. "Izuku? What is the meaning of this?" Aizawa said in confusion. Suddenly, his eyes widened as Izuku's body melted away, revealing that of a young, blonde girl. "Surprise. You just got duped, Mr. Hero." She laughed maniacally as a portal appeared behind her. What is this?" Aizawa dropped to the ground, dizzy from blood loss. "Don't you see? All of this, every single step we took, it was never for the students, no, all of this was for you," explained Kurogiri. "You bastard. So you planned all of this just to kill one lanky, 30-year-old man?" asked Aizawa in a defeated tone. Kurogiri responded with a laugh. "Of course not, there's no way I could have planned anything of this level, nay, the one who plotted your assassination was. Don't you dare say it." Izuku yelled through the mic, causing Kurogiri to jerk his head to the side a bit. "Lightless," Kurogiri said, not letting up his diabolical act. "Who?" the injured hero asked in bewilderment. "I'm not surprised you don't recognize the name, after all, he has never made any public appearances, although, does Grim Reaper ring any bell?" asked Kurogiri. Aizawa smirked. "Huh, so that mysterious serial killer is behind this, huh? Figures he would have joined an organized group such as yours," replied Aizawa, sitting on the ground cross-legged. "Well, now this is just sad, no struggle. No tears. No nothing," asked Toga. "The true hero must always be ready for death at any time. I may not have fulfilled my rescue mission, but Lord knows I tried," Aizawa said stoically, "thus, I have no regrets, just finish me off." "Very well then, farewell, Eraserhead," Kurogiri said, as he and Toga walked through the portal, pressing the detonator in the process. Suddenly, the entire bottom of the boat exploded right as the portal closed. Aizawa, sitting in place, looked into the sky and smiled as the flames slowly made their way towards him, engulfing him completely. Back at the control room, Izuku laughed sadistically as he witnessed the death of his own teacher. The portal that Kurogiri made opened behind them as Toga leapt through it and into Izuku's arms. "We did it. Eraserhead is erased and dead." Toga cheered happily as she hugged Izuku. "I gotta say, it was really cool seeing everything fall into place," replied Kurogiri. "Yeah, I mean, from hijacking the command room to leading Aizawa alone into a death trap, I don't think that we have ever pulled such a successful assassination in the league." Irina cheered, high-diving everyone, before grabbing Izuku by the collar. "Now where's my damn promotion?" The promotion can wait," said Sachi with a concerned voice. "Look." Izuku's eyes widened, looking through the screen. Somehow, in some way, defying all logic, Aizawa survived. But not only that, something was carrying him. "Wait, isn't that the Nomu that was supposed to be watching the front door to hold off All Might in case he shows up? What's he doing here?" Toga asked. Suddenly, Izuku's eyes filled with rage as he saw the man riding the Nomu, getting off it and walking to Aizawa. "Shigaraki." Meanwhile, on the outside, Shigaraki looked down upon the unconscious Aizawa. "I always sickens me when someone is doing my job. I hate it. All of it. Those who steal my thunder should burn in hell," Shigaraki said, reaching out for Aizawa, especially when they try to steal my kill. Touching Aizawa's left forearm, his skin began to decay, exposing his muscle tissues. "Did you really think you were going to die a quick and merciful death, Eraserhead? Even though you're unconscious, I'll make sure your death will be as painful as possible." Suddenly, stream of ice came flying at Shigaraki and forced him to back off. Looking to his side, he saw Todoroki and Kirishima, slightly injured, with cuts and bruises, but mostly intact. "Stay away from our teacher, you creep," ordered Kirishima, charging in. "Nomu." Suddenly, the Nomu reacted, punching Kirishima with a rapid right jab. But thanks to his hardening, Kirishima withstood the hit but was still sent flying. "Hi Kirishima." Aizawa started to regain consciousness. No. My plan. It's falling apart," Izuku yelled, banging the control panel. Everyone else in the control room went dead silent. "So, now what?" asked Sachi nervously. "Now, we switch to plan B," Izuku replied, donning his signature mask and jacket and stepping out the door. Back with Shigaraki, Todoroki and Kirishima tried their best to subdue the Nomu, but to no success. However, Shigaraki was also forced to help his Nomu and provide him assist, unable to kill off Aizawa. Stay away from them," Aizawa uttered weakly. Suddenly, Sayu dove in from behind, her tongue latching onto Aizawa. Shigaraki, seeing this, ran to catch her, but ended up stepping onto something sticky. Looking down, he saw that the ground was littered with purple balls. Unable to free himself, Aizawa suddenly felt really light as a Chaco was seen in the distance, removing his weight and making him easier for Tsuyu to carry. "Damn you, one after another. You just had to ruin it, didn't you?" Shigaraki yelled out, before feeling a pulsing shock hit him from behind. "Yeah. Nailed him," cheered Denki, along with Momo and Jiro. Upon witnessing this, Shigaraki's eyes went bloodshot red with rage. Why is it that every time I try to do something, it has to be ruined?" he yelled, punching the ground. "Surrender, villain, you're surrounded," said Todoroki. "Surrounded? Who gives a crap?" Shigaraki yelled out, walking forwards mechanically in rage. "Bring in all of Yuuei if you want. You won't be able to stop me as long as my Nomu is here." Suddenly, a huge blast of wind blasted the door open, as the shockwave sent everyone flying back, even the Nomu. And from the door came the silhouette of a muscular blonde hero. The students smiled with glee as they cheered his name. "All Might." Shigaraki gritted his teeth, violently scratching his neck till it bled. "So you finally decided to show yourself, symbol of peace," he said with a hint of insanity. As this event occurred, Izuku, now known as Mightless, sat by on the support beam of the room, observing everything from a distance. "You've really fucked us over, Shigaraki, I hope you're happy," he commented. Next to him was Sachi and Irina, looking down at the battlefield. "So, boss, what exactly is plan B?" "Just asking," asked Sachi. "Shush, I'm concentrating," replied Izuku. "I anticipated failure as a possible outcome, but failure by betrayal. No one could have seen such a thing coming." "Yeah. Just what was Shigaraki thinking? Does he have some sort of vendetta against you?" asked Irina. "That's what we're going to find out." The students cheered in joy at the appearance of All Might, who quickly ran to Aizawa, checking his wounds. "Damn Aizawa, they messed you up really bad, didn't they?" asked All Might. Guess you can say that I've seen better days," he weakly replied. "So fast," commented Mineta. "Anyhow," All Might said, turning to Shigaraki, "I have a villain to take care of." "I'll help," exclaimed Kirishima, but he was stopped. "No, you kids went through enough, rather, go find and evacuate the rest of the class, I'll take things from here." Upon hearing this, Shigaraki started to chuckle. "What's so funny?" asked All Might. "Oh, nothing, it's just the mere thought of you being able to defeat the Nomu, after all," Shigaraki said with a devilish glare. "You're getting weaker, aren't you?" Hearing those words seemed to trigger All Might. How did you know?" All Might asked. "Let's just say I was informed by a certain somebody," replied Shigaraki, "but that doesn't matter." Suddenly, the Nomu charged at him. "Because you're going to die right here and now." The Nomu landed a devastating hit, sending All Might flying back, smashing into a wall. "So fast," Todoroki exclaimed in shock. "Not even I could track it," Kirishima uttered. "This is truly the fight beyond our league." As the dust settled, All Might was revealed, standing strong, with a heavily bruised arm. Barely a minute left, but I got no choice, I must finish this, thought All Might. Shigaraki saw that the students were distracted and took advantage of the opportunity to charge at them. Why? Because. Shit. He's coming right for us. Yelled Mineta. I am the symbol of peace. Suddenly, with blinding speed, All Might charged straight at the Nomu, clashing fists with the beast. The shockwave from the clash was enough to repel Shigaraki as he leapt back, catching his balance, unlike the students, who were struggling to stay balanced, some even falling over. Izuku, watching the fight from a distance, analyzed the situation. A head-on assault though, Izuku. It's useless, he's got shock absorption, haven't you noticed? Asked Shigaraki. Yes, I have. All Might replied, not even looking at him. As the two beasts exchanged a barrage of fists, Izuku noticed something about his former hero. This bastard, he isn't just swinging randomly, every single hit. Nomu noticed that somehow, even though he was supposed to be practically immune to this sort of harm, he was sustaining damage. Is done with 100% of his strength. Slowly, All Might's wave of fists was overwhelming the Nomu that was slowly getting pushed back. You claim he has shock absorption, right? Absorption. And not nullification, then that must mean it has a limit to how much it can take. Built to surpass me at my full power, then I'll just have to go beyond that. All Might exclaimed, pounding the Nomu. As the other students started cheering for him, All Might noticed the rest of Class A, rooting for him of the balcony at the second floor. Next to them is an injured 13. It was a pain getting through my own disasters, but damn was it rewarding. Commented 13, wiping off some sweat on his forehead. All Might smiled as the Nomu was slowly reaching his limit. With one strong punch, he was able to unbalance the Nomu, leaving him open for an attack. Tell me, villain, have you ever heard these words? All Might asked the dazed beast. Go beyond. Suddenly, a silhouette was seen running into the fight, followed by another, much taller one. Plus ultra. Suddenly, a portal appeared right in the spot where All Might was supposed to punch, redirecting the punch into his own guts. Coughing out a carpet of blood, he was sent flying back. Right on time. Said Mightless. Mightless, I was wondering when you'd show up. Shigaraki said in a salty tone, only to be ignored by the two reinforcements. Hey. Who's the new guy? Asked Todoroki. All Might just got sent flying and that's what you're worried about, asked Kirishima. Don't worry. He's All Might. He'll be fine, but now, let's finish off this Nomu. Yeah. It looks like it's nearly at its limit. We can do this. Said Mineta. Oh really? Near its limit. Kurogiri. Izuku ordered. Right away, Kurogiri replied, passing him a syringe of black liquid. The trigger drug does wonders on quirk users, now let's see what it can do to a beast with multiple quirks. Said Mightless, running towards the Nomu that was on its knees, panting. Hey. That villain is doing something to the Nomu. Echako pointed out. Oh it? Kirishima said, running in to try and stop him, followed by Todoroki. Even some other students jumped in to help, but were too far away. Kirishima swung at Mightless with his arm, but he used a combination of martial arts and air current to block his hit. He then tripped him with a leg sweep and, by creating a small tornado on the back of his elbow, rocket punched Kirishima in the chest, sending him flying back. Todoroki sent a wave of ice at him, but Mightless leapt into the air with elegance and threw 3 throwing knives at him. The knives however flew upwards, not hitting anyone. Turning to Ichako, Mightless made a mad dash to take out the support, but his ankle got grabbed by Tsayu, who flung him into Kirishima's fist, punching him in the stomach and sending him flying back. Techmate, uttered Mightless as Kirishima suddenly noticed that he just knocked him into the downed Nomu. As Iida and Tokoyami caught up, they all ran towards the Nomu, making a mad dash. But it was too late, and Izuku had already injected the drug into the beast. Suddenly, the Nomu reanimated, unleashing a piercing scream unheard of by man. Rai. Suddenly, with blinding speed, as if it had teleported, the Nomu appeared behind the hero trainees and, with a single swing of his fist, created a shockwave, subduing nearly all of them. Such power, such speed, we can't win, uttered Kirishima. The other students were also paralyzed by fear, unable to do anything. After staring at the crowd, however, something inside Mightless started to burn up. Is this really all you've got, heroes? This is just pathetic. Where's your fighting spirit? What happened to the lively lot that were so naive that they could be heroes? Come on. IDNT, come here for this. Someone. Anyone, get up and throw a damn punch. He yelled out. No response. He let out a sigh. So this is how a hero dies. Nomu, kill Aizawa, and let's cram. he said in a much more calm voice. There was no opposition either, as almost everyone was on the ground, unable to even lift a finger. As they walked up to Aizawa, however, one lone hero stood in between the Titan and his master. Stop right there, or maybe not, uttered a scared Mineta. His legs were shaking violently and he wasn't moving a muscle. It almost made Izuku feel kinda sorry. For a second there, he even saw himself quaking in fear in front of Kaken. That though, however, pleased him. Not so tough now, are you? Now that I'm the one bullying you? Izuku let out. What? Asked Miners, confused. Nothing, just flashbacks getting the better of me. Anyways, Nomu, kill the baby first. Mightless ordered as he was about to, but suddenly, out of nowhere, All Might came out of the rubble, landing a heavy blow to the Nomu. Never fear, All Might was uttering weakly, showing signs of fatigue. I am here. He yelled out triumphantly as he tried to stop the Nomu. The hit, however, didn't do squat as Nomu picked up All Might by the arm he hit him with and started to beat him like a sandbag. Mightless, upon witnessing this, started to laugh maniacally. Ha 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 ha. How does it feel, All Might? The number one pro hero. Reduced to a punching bag. Suffer. Cry. Die. 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 Mightless laughed in a way that made even Shigaraki swallow nervously. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a voice was heard. Leave All Might alone. It was Izuku, running in, nailing Mightless in the face and sending him flying backwards. What the hell is going on? Asked Sachi in the distance. Why are there two Izukus? Plan B is concluded, we're leaving. Ordered Kurogiri. What? Hey. Shadow dude, explain. Sachi asked, to no response. Back with Izuku, the villain tried to get back up but was slammed to the ground once again. All of other students watched in awe while Shigaraki just stared in confusion. What is happening? Shigaraki asked himself as Izuku was opening a can of Wupass on Mightless, sending him flying back into Nomu. Another one to crash the party. Do you really think you can vanquish my Nomu alone? Asked Mightless. Izuku grinned. Who said I was alone? Suddenly, a bullet flew in, hitting the Nomu in the eye as he cried in pain. It's the pro heroes. Cheered Mineta. What? Shigaraki yelled out. Suddenly, all the pro heroes arrived, charging in to save the students, Aizawa and All Might. Meanwhile, Mightless grabbed Shigaraki and ran. Nomu. Hold off the heroes while we escape. This is my final order. The Nomu agreed, letting out a menacing red eye and charged blindly at the heroes. As explosions and destruction rang in the distance, Mightless and Shigaraki hopped into the escape portal, which led to a helicopter piloted by Spinner, flying the two, along with Kurogiri, Irina and Sachi off. The duo took a minute to take a breather as they flew off into the horizon. Back at the hideout, Izuku explained to Sachi and Irina what Plan B was. So to clarify, the reason we were killing Aizawa was because he was suspecting that you were Mightless, so in case we failed the assassination, Plan B was to send in Toga, disguised as you, while you make your first appearance and intro. So then, Aizawa would see you and your villain identity in the same spot, thus clearing his suspicion. And it would also skyrocket your already high reputation, gaining more and more heroes' trust, so that you can backstab, correct? Asked Sachi. That's pretty much it, yes. Replied Izuku. That's genius. Replied Sachi. Now, let's deal with the reason why we needed to resort to Plan B in the first place. Izuku said, turning to Shigaraki. Shigaraki, noticing that everyone in the room was turning on him, took on his rebuttal. Well, I needed to prove that I was better than Better than what? Exactly. Speak the truth, we all want to hear it. Shigaraki clenched his fist. It's because you were stealing my thunder. Okay, people think that I am not good Enin anymore. Instead, they'll all look at this kid. He's so special because he has no quirk. It's infuriating. Izuku looked at him with the eyes of a disappointed father. So you sabotaged our mission to inflate your ego? No. I sabotaged your mission because what? Izuku cut off. Have you been hiding something from me? Suddenly, Shigaraki lunged at him. Why you? It shouldn't be you. I'm all for one's next user. Me, you hear me? Tamura Shigara. Suddenly, two portals appeared, warping away his arms. Irina took out a tiny battle axe keychain that became as big as a regular battle axe. Magni slammed him to the ground with his magnet, and he got pinned by all the other villains in the room. Inherit all for one. Me as the new successor. Sounds fun. Izuku grinned. Sensei. Please help me. Cried Shigaraki as tears welled up in his eyes. Suddenly, he could hear his voice, talking in his head. "Sorry Tamura, but you have failed me for the last time." Izuku looked down upon Shigaraki with pitiful eyes. "What a shame, you spent all these years wanting that quirk. And now, everything you worked for, everything you dreamt of, your League of Villains, belongs to me, take him away." Izuku yelled. "No no no. You can't do this to me. You can't do this. Sensei please. Save me. I can still be useful. I can still be useful." Shigaraki cried in desperation as he was getting dragged away by his former comrades. Spinner. Magni. Somebody. Anyone. The last thing Shigaraki saw, however, was Izuku, smiling sadistically and waving him bye-bye as he was being taken away. Lightly, Shigaraki's voice faded in the distance. As Shigaraki was taken away, Kurogiri turned to Izuku. "So what now, boss?" Chapter 17. From one dark alley to another, the faint sounds of one's footsteps could be heard, faintly muffled under the sound of rain, lashing against the pavement. A frantic panting can be heard, accompanying this symphony of desperation as a formerly great villain and leader ran from his former colleagues. His body, battered and bruised, aching from torture wounds, would have made you believe he was a victim to the League of Villains, rather than its former leader. The waves of raindrops soaked what was left of his dark robe, moisturizing his dried, wrinkled skin, and keeping fresh wounds from closing. He didn't stop his panic sprint though, as he could heard the sound of his pursuers dead behind him. "Get him. Don't let the traitor escape," yelled one of his pursuers, letting his nearby companions know that he found him. Soon after that, another silhouette jumped down from the rooftops, his body shifting mid-fall, as he blocked the escape route of our former villain. "You've got guts, killing 2 of our men and bolting, but did you really think you can escape us?" asked the Chaser. His target remained silent. "Too scared to even utter out a single word, huh? Don't worry, we won't kill you, we have much, much better uses for you." The now gargantuan ape of a man stood above him, swinging at him with his massive arm. "Now come now, it's time to go to sleep." Suddenly, the gorilla villain felt an indescribable pain coming from his left arm, where he supposedly hit his mark. His eyes panicked as his left arm started to crumble, getting completely reduced to dust. Just then, the scrawny, broken, ex-fearless leader charged forward, placing his palm on his foe's forehead. Screams of agony could be heard as the beast man's head's flesh peeled off, leaving a human skull crumbled to dust seconds later. The limp, lifeless corpse flopped to the ground as Shigaraki rubbed his right arm, where he had taken the hit. "Broken," he thought, as he then continued to limp away. Reaching the more illuminated parts of town, Shigaraki hurried to make it out into the open. At this point, he knew it was either getting turned into another mindless soldier or getting arrested, and frankly, even he knew which one was the better option. But of course, before he could reach the exit, he was stopped by another attacker. "Great. Now you escaped and killed one of our search party participants, you've really done it, haven't?" Suddenly, a throwing knife came flying out of the dark, stabbing the guy right through the head. The dead corpse of the villain staggered back a little bit before collapsing into a pile of trash. Shigaraki, looking around fearfully, attempted to call out of help, but couldn't muster up the energy to even form any words. Suddenly, a silhouette jumped down from the rook. Shigaraki, attempting to run, tripped and fell into his back, staring fearfully at the stranger. "Who the heck are you?" asked the imposing figure. No response. "Well hello, Mr. Hand on Face, the name's Stain." Back at the hideout, Izuku waited patiently for Toga's return, as well as conjuring up another plan. Kurogiri got curious and looked over at Izuku's notes. On his notebook, he saw an album of all the students from Class A, with scribbles all over them. "Wondering what I'm doing, huh?" asked Izuku, not even looking up. "Well, with you, this could literally mean anything," replied Kurogiri. "I have learned, with my experience in Class A, that they all want to become heroes for different reasons. And of course, as you know, the reason you seek to become a hero also make you into someone you think can be described as hero. In other words, the definition of hero varies in between students, and their ideals can still be influenced." Kurogiri was able to fill in the gaps. "You're looking to see which of these students seem trustworthy enough to recruit, aren't you?" asked Kurogiri. "Bullseye Kurogiri, bullseye." Kurogiri's head extended out, wrapping around that of Izuku, attempting to get a better view of the notes. "Who do you think so far can we trust?" asked Kurogiri. Izuku let out a smile, pointing his pencil at Todoroki. "I haven't seen much of this kid, but I feel great, untapped potential coming from him." "The son of Endeavor?" asked the shadowy bartender. It would be very interesting to see what a father would do when his son suddenly would want to kill him," replied Izuku. "I don't recommend it," said a voice from the back. Izuku turned around, seeing Dabi entering the room. "Ah, Dabi, back from your nightly grind, how's it been?" asked Izuku. "You mentioned recruiting my brother, don't do it, he may be the son of Endeavor, my dad also, but the one hero that he truly admires is All Might," Dabi continued. "Thoughts can change, Dabi, they can change," Izuku continued. Suddenly, through the door came Toga, lunging into Izuku's arms. "Izuku-un, I'm finally back," Toga replied in a much more excited tone than normal. "Whoa, easy there," Izuku said in a hint of surprise. Toga leaped into Izuku's arms like a dog waiting for his owner to return from work. Izuku fell onto the floor as Toga immediately started to strip him. Hey, Toga. What the hell?" asked Izuku. "A promise is a promise, Izuku. I kept up my end and behaved exactly like how you wanted me to. Now where's my end of the bargain?" asked Toga. "What are you saying?" Izuku asked in confusion. Suddenly, Toga's face went red with anger as she delivered a brutal slap across Izuku's face. "Izuku, you idiot," she yelled. Izuku, now with a palm-shaped red mark running down his face, turned to Toga, who pulled out her phone to play a recording. There were some words lost to the static, but then Izuku's voice was heard. "Now listen, Toga, when you take my place and save the day, I want you to behave exactly like me, like, no turning away the girls, no sexual hints, just, plain old innocent Izuku, for one whole day." "And what will I get if I do what I am told?" asked Toga in the recording. Then, as if said in a way to just make her do her job, Izuku's voice replied. "Then we'll make love as soon as the mission's over, got it?" Izuku started to sweat nervously. "I never recorded that, Toga, you silly goose, you must have used your quirk to change your voice and fake a conversation." "Yeah. That's it," Izuku stuttered. Getting annoyed, Toga leaned in and kissed him in front of everyone, and Kurogiri, like the sicko that he is, made himself a drink and watched. Heading to school was very nerve-wracking for Izuku, mainly because he isn't sure what Toga has in store when she posed as him. Entering the class, he was greeted with cheers and applause. Most of his classmates ran up to him, congratulating him for his bravery. Achako even hugged his right arm, leaning against his shoulder. And several girls in the classroom were looking at him with dreamy eyes. "I have a girlfriend, you know," Izuku whispered as Achako suddenly remembered Toga and let go, embarrassed. The door opened as Aizawa, now covered in bandages, limped through the doorway. Most of the students turned to him, wondering if he should even be teaching in the state that he was in. "Alright everyone, take your seats," Aizawa said casually, as if nothing happened. "I hope you're doing well, Aizawa-sensei," some of the students commented, seeing his injuries. "My welfare isn't important right now, we have much more important businesses at hand," said Aizawa. Some of the students shuddered, expecting more villains. "The Yuuei Sports Festival is fast approaching," he announced. "Such an ordinary school thing," exclaimed some of the students. At the conference room, Inspector Tsukauchi laid out some paperwork, explaining the results of his investigation to the pro heroes. "The man named Shigaraki has a quirk that disintegrates anything he touches. We've been through the list of men in their 20s or 30s, but no luck, he hasn't turned up, neither has the Warpgate villain," explained the inspector. "So what you're saying is we have a few unregistered quirk users to deal with?" asked Snipe. The inspector shook his head. "Sadly, I fear we have much bigger problems to deal with," he said, opening a file as well as retrieving a vial from his pocket. "We were finally able to get a clear image of the rumored Grim Reaper, who's been killing all of our pro heroes. We still have no data about his appearance, official size, weight, or even quirk, but what we do know is that he currently holds possession of this." He released a vial containing a black liquid. "Isn't that Trigger All Might finished," cutting off Vlad. This quirk enhancement drug, well thought to be banned, seemed to have resurfaced, and sources suggest that Mightless might not only have still a truckload's worth, but would also have created variants with different effects, replied the inspector. "Mightless?" asked Nezu. Kurogiri revealed the Grim Reaper's official codename. "We've already registered him in the villains list," explained the inspector. "Is there a possibility that he's the ringleader of this attack?" asked All Might. "Judging by the other possibilities, I believe so. According to our sources, the three potential leaders we compiled were Kurogiri, Shigaraki and Mightless, and out of these three, Mightless seems to be the most likely candidate." Unlike Shigaraki, he's calm and composed, even when his plans seem to go haywire, as if failing to kill Aizawa was part of his plan. He only revealed himself at the last second, and from eyewitnesses' perspective, it seemed Shigaraki wasn't actually part of this attack and just wanted to join, so he forced himself in. Analyzed the inspector. So in other words, he's a man-child. Said Midnight. Gurujiri was another potential leader, but seeing how he appeared first, I find that unlikely, especially considering how rare it is to see leaders put in the front line. Continued the inspector. Perhaps we should prioritize on this mindless fellow. If left unchecked, who knows how much chaos he might cause in the future? Asked Snipe. We would if we could, but as of now, all of us are in an awkward position. Villain attacks are becoming more and more frequent thanks to Mindless's influence. Many pro-heroes are already teachers and staffs here in Yuuei and in other schools, and most importantly, should this attack be broadcasted, which is likely, All Might will be forced into the battlefield to keep up his #1 hero reputation, and with his state, I doubt he would last out there. Explained the inspector in an apologetic tone. You shouldn't worry about my state. Said All Might, after all, I think I've found a suitable successor for my quirk. Chapter 18. Sports Festival. Wasn't there a villain attack just a few days ago? Asked one of the students. It is necessary to demonstrate that Yuei's crisis management protocols are sound, replied Aizawa. Of course, there will be much more increased security, 5 times the police presence compared to last year, as well as a huge gathering of pro-heroes, thus preventing any form of villain attack from breaching us. We feel that this is necessary, considering the appearance of the recent League of Villains led by Mindless. Izuku felt a sense of pride hearing those words. Increasing security. Grouping up heroes. They must be scared shitless. He blushed, flattered by the indirect compliment given to him by his former target no less. The sports festival is one of Japan's biggest events after all. After the Olympics collapsed in popularity, it was the event that rose from its ashes, forming a national-scale event that's so important, attempts at hindrance can lead to sentences as severe as murder. Aizawa explained, giving off obvious exposition. I heard many participants were later taken under the wings of pro-heroes to be sidekicks, and many were unable to go solo and remained sidekicks for the rest of their career. Replied Kaminari. That sounds like you, replied Jiro, pissing him off. So do your best and show the world what the future generation of pro-heroes will be like. If you want to become pro-heroes, this will be your first step. Aizawa called out. After modern literature class, most of the students were stoked, excited for the upcoming event. Kirishima expressed his excitement with some of his classmates, while Iida and Ichako were looking for Izuku. Is he usually this hard to find? Asked Ichako. Not really, just look for that mass grouping of students and you'll usually find him. Replied Iida. Mass grouping? The brunette asked back. Apparently, Izuku's now famous across the school for standing up to the villains and saving Aizawa, as well as protecting both us students, and even All Might, of course. That doesn't mean everyone's a fan, in fact, most people just assumes he got lucky. Iida said, pointing to Kitsuki, sitting alone in the corner. Then there are students like Kitsuki, jealous of the fame Izuku is hogging. Although, out of those people, I think he might be the only student that still tries to attack him, despite just getting out of suspension. The two met up with Izuku, heading towards the cafeteria, and caught up to him. Hey Izuku. Ichako called out. Oh, hey there Ichako. Izuku replied with a smile. You don't seem to be excited, despite the announcement of the sports festival. Why is that? She asked. I'm not alone on that, Todoroki didn't seem that stoked either, so why ask me? Replied Izuku. Well, Todoroki is just him. He's a real wad of mystery, unbelievably strong and always boasting that same emotionless face. Explained the brunette, but why you? I thought you loved heroes. I do, really, but I dunno, maybe because I just don't see them like I used to. Maybe because I'm growing up. Explained Izuku. Hey now. No one's ever too old to be a hero. I mean, look at us. We're literally learning how to be heroes. Iida replied, well actually, coming to think of it, why do you want to be a hero anyway? Give me your answers first. Izuku replied, hesitating for a bit. Iida thought for a bit. Ever heard of the Turbo Hero Ingenium? Asked Iida. You mean your brother? Asked Izuku. Both Ichako and Iida froze, both for different reasons. Wait, he's your brother? Ichako asked Iida in shock. Wait, how did you know he was my brother? Iida asked Izuku. I dunno, that similarities in appearance, your rich noble attitude, your matching last names. Izuku continued to list them off. Ah, I see. Iida replied. So? Go on, what does your brother have to do with you being a hero? Asked Izuku. Well, I know this may sound childish, but I want to be like my brother when I grow up. I want to carry on his torch once he drops it. I want to grow up to become someone as important as him and set the bar higher from the Iida family's reputation. Iida replied in a slightly embarrassed way. Hey, there's no shame in following your brother, Iida. Izuku replied. Well, I guess. And you? Asked Iida, turning to Ichako. She remained silent. Ichako? Iida asked. Money, she replied nervously. Izuku felt a slight hint of anger at the reveal of her supposed greed. Sorry if it seems base and selfish, it's really embarrassing, especially compared to Ida's reason. She said, trying to hide her face in shame. Embarrassing? It's perfectly normal to seek a better lifestyle. Iida asked, waving his arms around, nearly slapping Izuku. Don't mention this to anyone, but I come from a poor family. They run a construction company, but things always seem to go downhill. I tried my best to help, but I always have that feeling of guilt that I'm the reason why Dad is working so hard, that he suffers for my same. She muttered. Izuku's anger subsided as he now knows what she's truly after. So I'm going to be a pro-hero so that Mom and Dad can live an easier life. She said valiantly. With her reason down, they turned to Izuku, asking for his reason. So? Why do you want to be a hero? The two of them asked. Izuku looked downwards, the shadow of his hair covering his eyes. Villains. Izuku said firmly. Villains? As in, capturing them? Do you have some kind of grudge? Asked Ichako. No, I want to help them. He replied. Wait, what? As in? No. Not assist on their criminal activities, you dumbass. Izuku reassured Iida, rather, when you stop and wonder, have you ever thought that at some point in their life, they were a young kid, just like us? Ichako and Iida thought for a moment. Come on, you can't seriously look at this world in such a black and white perspective. Izuku continued. Come to think of it, yeah, they are human after all. Iida thought for a moment. Exactly, now, think for a moment, why do you think villains fight? Asked Izuku. That question stumped the two classmates. For their entire life, they thought little for the villains they were gonna encounter, and now, they were asked a full-blown pop quiz about them. Even Iida, one of the smartest students in Class A, couldn't answer the question. Izuku let out a sigh of disappointment. Because they have no other choice. Geez, you two are slow. Izuku finally explained. No other choice? Asked Iida. Do you think they attack people for no reason? They all have their individual motives. Whether it's money, abuse, or just a mismanagement of quirks. Explained Izuku. Yeah. So they are a danger to society. Hence why we must stop them. Said Iida. Izuku made a noise imitating a buzzer in those quiz shows. Wrong again. They're a danger to society when they became villains. But at some point in their life, they could have been a law-abiding citizen. But whether it was an abusive family they were born in, or grief for their lost ones, or even despair driving them to insanity after they get their dreams crushed and laughed at, bullied by those who were stronger than him, they were driven to a point where they were forced to be aggressive. Hence, they are classified villains and beat down by the very heroes they have admired their entire lives. Heroes he believed in actually attack them, despite their past suffering. These are the people who need help, but never get any. But I'm different, and when it comes to a point where I have to say, everyone has a chance in life, I will include even villains into that speech. Izuku explained. His classmates stood still. His revelation gave them a whole new perspective to look at. Izuku could hear them mumbling, probably trying to piece together their new information. I'll give you time to think about it, meanwhile, I'm starved. Izuku said, heading off to the cafeteria. On his way to the cafeteria, however, he ran into Kitsuki. Knowing he'd be pissed off, Izuku knew he didn't have the time to think up anything to ridicule him. Rather, he attempted to run past him. Apparently, Kitsuki wasn't as pissed off as he thought, and Izuku ran right past him. Hold up for just 1 second, Deku. Kitsuki yelled out as Izuku passed him. Izuku turned around, feeling uncomfortable hearing Kitsuki yell in such a tone. It wasn't his usual pissed off yelling, rather a much more authoritative command. You called? Asked Izuku, turning around to face the blonde bomb of a student. I wanted to ask you something concerning our fight. Kitsuki ordered. Odd, he shouldn't remember anything involved in that fight. Recovery girl said that he would suffer memory loss from his hit to the head. Izuku thought. What did you do? Asked Kitsuki. Excuse me? Izuku asked calmly, trying to hide his nervousness. I can't seem to remember anything from the fight, everything's a blur. But from what I can gather, you apparently beat me. Kitsuki said, as himself voice got louder and angrier. Izuku grinned, reassured that Kitsuki didn't remember jack. I simply got lucky, that is all. Izuku replied. Kitsuki slammed his fist against the wall, cracking it. Bullshit. It's true, you slipped on a banana peel and fell over, hitting your head against the wall. Izuku said in a comical tone. I never slip. And most importantly, I never lose. You broke my winning streak. So I want you get trained like hell. I want the satisfaction of crushing you even after 2 weeks worth of preparation. So don't slack off on me, got it? Asked Kitsuki. Got it, Kaken. Replied Izuku, walking away casually. Deku, what happened to you? Asked Kitsuki. That line was supposed to leave you shaking in your boots, but now, you shakes them off as empty threats. Izuku stopped, not even looking back. I've changed, Kaken, I've grown up. Izuku replied coldly, and you should too. Suddenly, as if it was a dream, Kitsuki said something Izuku was shocked to hear. It was around 7 p.m. back at the hideout, Sachi and playing darts by himself, shooting the board with his quirk rather than with actual throwing darts, allowing him to hit bullseye almost every time. Just then Izuku came through the door, like usual, covered in blood, with a Toga quickly following. I guess things went smoothly. Kurogiri asked. Meh, could have gotten better. Replied Izuku, sitting down for a drink. Everything alright, Izuku-kun? Asked Toga, you've been awfully quiet. Yeah, you would usually come back from your work really lively, giving life to the room. Sachi commented. Who knows? Guess I'm just real tired. Anyhow, I assume you're ready for another big raid. Asked Izuku. Are we? We were born ready. Irina said out of the corner of the bar, so, what's the big plan? Are we trashing the sports festival? Please tell me we're trashing the sports festival. Izuku shook his head, regaining his good old leader persona. Nah, I have other plans in mind. In fact, Jiren is already preparing our new recruits for this special operation. Izuku explained. Which is? Asked Sachi. The full-scale raid at the main hero headquarters. Izuku revealed his big surprise. The whole room went silent. Wait, as in, the entire headquarters? Asked Twice. Of course, after the USJ incident, the heroes have been scared shitless, hence why most of the top heroes will be watching the sports festival, miles away from their HQ, that's when we will strike. Izuku explained. And our objective? Asked Kurogiri. The HQ is where some of the heroes hold some of the most dangerous weapons and drugs in Japan. From banned firearms to trigger drugs 5 times more effective than anything we have produced, as well as anti-quirk restraints, and a file containing the most intimate data of every single registered pro heroes. That file is our main objective, anything below that are side objectives. Then we must get preparing. Said Sachi. Rightfully so, Sachi, Irina, provide reconnaissance around the building. I want to know the schedule, and when exactly is the building the least guarded? Twice, Spinner, I want you assassinate a staff member of the HQ and acquire their blood. Toga, you will be in charge of sneaking into the building and unlocking any locked doors from the inside. Not even the staffs are allowed into the main computers, and I doubt we'd be able to take down and pose as a pro hero, so we're gonna have to go in by force and escape unnoticed. Mr. Compress, Magni, you two will be in charge of our escape vehicle, and Kurogiri pour me drink. Explained Izuku, we have 2 weeks worth of prep time, got it? Yeah. The same words Kitsuki said to Izuku echoed through his head, preventing him from sleeping. Izuku never thought Kitsuki could say something like that, it's just so unexpected. Flashback. Kitsuki's mouth opened, as all other sounds in the hall was muted out. Izuku froze to the shock of hearing his words. But they sound genuine, and he can feel Kitsuki's sorrow. Izuku. A single tear ran down his face. I miss you. Chapter 19. 2 weeks left until the grand event. The sports festival, and Izuku has already gotten the documents from the intel unit, Sachi and Irina, concerning their reconnaissance mission. The HQ is a gargantuan 80-story compound on the outskirts of town, surrounded by a 15-foot brick wall, with security patrolling around also 24/7. Although, Twice and Spinner were able to successfully murder a staff member without being noticed, and Toga can now pose as said staff to freely access the first 30 floors of the building. Also, according to the Intel unit, the main computers with the international hero file is located on floor 77. As such, the best method of escape is by helicopter. Hence, in order for them to barge in, steal the files and escape, they can't exceed the weight limit their current helicopter can carry. Luckily, Compress and Magni were able to fetch a cargobob somehow. Meaning that the limit to how many people to bring into this operation has now increased to 8. And since Sachi, Irina, Toga, Magni and Compress are included into this calculation, that leaves 3 open slots for the heist. Luckily, Izuku had sent Jiren to recruit some fresh new units to the team. According to Kurogiri, Shigaraki was very picky in selecting his members and would often lash out whenever a new member gets elected without his consent. He wasn't happy after hearing, considering that he recently just escaped after killing Gordon, Darwin, Katz and Shogi, 4 of his best men. 2 failed to keep him contained and 2 more died while trying to retrieve him. The day was the big day. The villains were designated to meet up at a warehouse and Izuku, under the name Mightless, will now go meet them and discuss his plans. Wow, Gibran wasn't kidding. There really are a lot of eager volunteers. Though Izuku, looking into the warehouse from his vantage point. "Are you ready, sir?" asked Jiren. "Are my bodyguards in position?" asked Izuku. All Nomus are well hidden underneath the crates, and yes, they are all designed to counter each individual volunteer and will attack on your command, should they attempt to betray you of course," replied the sleazy ex-salaryman. "Good, then, wish me luck," Izuku said as he stepped out to his podium, 1 floor above the crowd. The chattering villains noticed the young lad walking up to the podium and silenced themselves to listen. Izuku looked down and counted. There was around 15 applied villains. Many varied in age, appearance, sanity even. He cleared his throat and out his mouth came a firm, calm, energetic and letter-like tone. "Welcome, my volunteers, to the League of Villains, a mighty organization bent on bringing down the most corrupt, arrogant and hypocritical organization in the world, the Hero Association." Cheers could be heard from below, encouraging his speech. But, before we can begin, I would like to take a moment to make some things clear. We are doing this mainly to punish heroes. So if any of you simply came for the money, I suggest you pack your bags and leave. He waited to a brief moment, but not a single person left. Izuku smiled, now knowing that these are people that he can trust. Perfect. Now, as much as this is a disappointment, I am sad to tell you that the current operation only requires 3 individuals, and as such, I will be selecting THR best out of the 15 of you. So to determine my new followers, I will send all of you on a special task. Now hold the phone for a moment. A voice spoke up from the crowd as a tall, well-built soldier raised his hand, followed by 3 others, all in the same, military-style uniform, with a matching emblem. "What about organized groups like us? There's 4 of us here." "Oh dear, that's quite an unexpected surprise. Well, I guess your units may identify as one. Seeing how it breaks my heart to know this recruitment session would break up teams," Izuku replied. "I hope this kid knows what he's doing, cause I'm getting real skeptical here." Replied a much larger person behind the man who spoke up. "We're here to do the mission and get even with the heroes, not join their cause." Rabid, "I'm not quite on board either, but if we get a chance to get payback to the very men that got away with slaughtering our forces, we might as well get paid for the job," he replied. Izuku looked down on his recruitment list and do a tad bit of research on the group. The Hounds, mercenaries and ex-US Special Forces, known for the Okinawa incident, members include Alpha, Tracker, Rabbit and Doc. They might be quite useful for this operation, although, chances of them sticking around are slim. Out of everyone else in this group, they might get this job done much easier compared to everyone else. Though Izuku. Suddenly, another volunteer raised his hand. "Can we just do this operation and get paid, but not actually join the league?" asked said volunteer. "Oh? So I suppose you're here just for money, right?" asked Izuku. "He must be Aberk, quirk-wise, he might be the last guy I want for such an operation, and his ambitions surely doesn't help. Although, he may be of great use in case the pro heroes do show up, might as well give him a shot as well." "Yeah, I hear your earlier speech, I can leave if you want," he replied nervously as he saw everyone glaring at him and even the boxes felt like they had eyes. "It's fine, everyone here is given equal chances to succeed, assuming they can stand up to the following task," Izuku declared. "Task?" mumbled the crowd to each other. Izuku cleared his throat once more. "You see, we had a minor setback during a recent assassination attempt when a member within our ranks betrayed us. Izuku said as a picture was projected behind Izuku via projector. This man's name is Tamura Shigaraki, his quirk allows his to disintegrate everything he touches. The former member of this league, his spoiled childish attitude lead to him betraying the organization and backstabbing us during a mission. He is now on the run, and your job is to bring him back to me. Alive, of course. Is there any time limit? Asked a young boy around his age, with the age running down his face. No, first come, first serve. Izuku said, and I wish you all good luck. And with that, the villains were dispatched, some started to group up, while others started to search alone. As the villains left the building, Jiren appeared behind Izuku. I had already run a background check on them, so why this initiation mission? He asked. Izuku smirked. Your background check only allows your volunteers to show you what they want you to see, and liars, especially in the villain world, can often take advantage of that to provide false information. Threatening refusal of administration and creating a steadying competition is the best way to reveal these people's true colors. Are they lone wolves or team players? And they rebellious or loyal? Are they organized or do they think on the fly? This will be the perfect opportunity to find out what these people are truly capable of. Izuku replied as a portal appeared beside him. Where are you going? Asked Jiren. I have hacked into the city cameras, and now, I would like to observe how your handpicked volunteers fare. As per expected, several groups were formed between the volunteers. Izuku immediately took interest to the hounds, who were acting very professionally, scouting abandoned building while wearing casual civilian wear. Izuku noted that Tracker, the second in command, had a quirk can track down specific targets, but doesn't work well in cities, and considered that maybe this job wouldn't suit him very well. Meanwhile, it seems as though there were some lone wolves within their squad. He could see Jack, already causing trouble due to his twitchy behavior, Steel, who was doing the smart thing and asked nearby locals if they had seen Shigaraki, holding up a picture for reference. Two other teams also started to form, Endu seemed to have team up with Kuro and Kumo. Although, from his analysis, he was more using them than actually cooperating. Meanwhile, it seemed as though Veronica, Yeong, Abeck and Russi, all being kind, cooperative people, have teamed up together in quite a spectacular manner. First, Veronica and Russi ran into each other, apologized to each other, with Russi going on and on about something he wasn't able to hear. It was almost like the first time he met a Chaco. He then saw the two shake hands. Next thing you know, a German shepherd leapt onto Veronica as Yeong ran in, rapidly apologizing, and soon enough, even Abeck joined the group. Izuku then turned to his notes. So far, the hounds were a super solid team, while Veronica's group seemed to get along so well, he called that group team friends, while named Endu's group team puppet, due to Endu manipulative nature, that was clearly starting to show. Despite knowing so much, I can't hear a word they're saying, wonder how things are coming along. Izuku said to himself. With team friends. Veronica peeked around the corner, finding a trail of blood that ran down the alleyway. Calling for her team, she waited for them to show up. Jefferson, Yeong's German Shepherd mixed dog ran in first, followed by Yeong. Whoa, is that blood? Asked Yeong. No, it's strawberry jam and red ink. Replied Veronica sarcastically. Yeong bent over, scraped off the dried up blood and smelled it. Nope, it's blood. She said jokingly. Veronica chuckled as she patted Jefferson's head, who gave out a satisfied grunt. He's cute, your dog. Veronica commented. Oh, thanks, his name's Jefferson. Yeong said, nervously. Well, Jefferson, can you sniff out where this blood trail leads to? Asked Veronica, now scratching its stomach. The shepherd licked her and immediately started to follow the blood trail. Suddenly, they hear a voice from behind. Oh my god, is that a dog? Cried Russi in a high-pitched voice. No, it's a hairy octopus. Replied Yeong, imitating Veronica, making her chuckle for a bit. Suddenly, in a sort of violent manner, Russi lunged onto the shepherd's, cuddling it. I love dogs. Russi exclaimed, cuddling the pup, making him let out a satisfied grunt. Abeck, meanwhile, looked at the three and smiled, charmed by their young, spunky spirit and energy. We should get moving, we're not here to make friends, remember? We have a mission to do. Abeck spoke up, walking ahead. Jefferson immediately followed, and the three girls kept up as well. While following the dog, Veronica turned to the rest of the group. Something came to mind, actually. She said, do we have any plan when we find him? It's not like he's not gonna fight back. We should probably formulate a plan of attack. Yeong nodded. You're right, if we can coordinate our attack, catching the dude would be a lot easier. She said. We don't know where he's currently hiding though, so what if our plan isn't suitable for the environment? Asked Russie. Relax, the only place for a man like that to hide would be abandoned buildings. Destroying such buildings is my specialty. He said. Wait, you don't mean entire buildings now do you? Asked Yeong, impressed. I mean the entire buildings, wiped out, pulverized, gone, nada. Abek replied. You must have a real powerful quirk to pull off such a feat. Commented Russie, as opposed to my give and take quirk, which only has the ability to transfer damage from one end to another. I have a pain enhancement quirk, in case you're wondering. Veronica immediately said after realizing they were talking about each other quirks. Well, I think both of you have amazing quirks, mine is a lot simpler though, but a plain old gigantification quirk, pretty common, actually, among civilians at least. Replied Abek, and you? Suddenly the three turned towards Yeong, eager for a response. She tried to hide her face, attempting her best not to embarrass herself. But before the three can get an answer out of her, Jefferson started to let out a panicked bark. Our jolly group quickly turned towards Jefferson, who was barking at an ominous-looking building. That must be where he's hiding. Said Russie. The place is really giving me the creeps though. Said Veronica. Abek walked towards it as his body started to expand in size. Then we just have to smash it down, right? Abek asked as he raised his forearm, attempting to knock down the front door. Stop. Veronica, Russie and Yeong yelled in unison as the three charged at him, knocking him down. What the hell? Asked Abek, still on the ground. We can't take him head on, at least one of us is bound to get killed otherwise. Explained Veronica, we'll have to find another way in. Russie fiddled with the front door for a bit. Locked, as expected. She said, walking back. Well, maybe we can use Abek's gigantification quirk to carry us to one of the top floors, that way, we may sneak in from somewhere he wouldn't expect. Suggested Veronica. Suddenly, Yeong walked up, pulling out her hairpin, letting her ponytail collapse, and started to fiddle with the lock. Don't worry about the locks, I am adept at picklocking, so leave the utility stuff to me. She explained. As the young girl fiddled with the lock, her dog growled at something in the distance. Meanwhile, Russie went next to Yeong. I didn't you new lockpicking. She said. Yeong smiled, not taking her eyes off the lock. I have to be, it's the only contribution I can give to the team, since I'm quirkless. Everyone went silent when they heard her say that this young girl who wanted to join a villain alliance to ignite pro-heroes was quirkless. I wouldn't be surprised if you were shocked. I was rejected for my entire life, for not being strong enough. This is why I must prove to Izuku that even the quirkless can be useful. Trust me, I will not be a dead weight to this team. She said with confidence as a click was heard and the door swung open. Before any of the three can congratulate her, an ominous aura leaked out from the dark corridors that stood in front of them, as giant purple font spelled menacing, radiated the room. Ladies, girls? Asked Abek nervously. Dogs follow. Replied Yeong as all three went in at the same time. Abek looked down and saw Jefferson standing next to him. Come on, go, you heard the girls. With Steel. Excuse me sir, did you see a man looking like this? Asked Steel to a random passerby, but to no response. Steel let out a light curse. He's been searching for 2 full hours and no sign of Shigaraki. He started to wonder if this was a setup and that they were all supposed to fail when he saw from the corner of his eyes a man dressed in black with a face mask on. Looking at his photo, the man's hair and wrinkly face matched the image perfectly. He was holding 2 bags as he disappeared into the crowd. Jackpot. Steel said to himself. With Jack. Despite Jack's twitchy personality, he was able to ask a man if he had seen anyone with a hand on his face run by. This of course, freaked the man out as he ran away screaming. Well shit. He said to himself. With Shigaraki. After spending a week or so living with Stain, he's healed sufficiently to be able to walk. Trudging along after buying some groceries, he decided he was gonna have one more meal at Stain's place and leave. By then, he needed to find a way to A. gain Sensei's trust once more, B. kill Izuku and C. regain control over the league. He needed to find a better base than the run-down apartment Stain was staying in, so he decided he was gonna look for a new base of operations as soon as he has his last meal. Heading back however, he noticed the door was wide open. Letting out a frustrated grunt, assuming he forgot to shut the door and that Stain was too lazy to do it himself, he walked into the apartment. Suddenly, he could noises, sounds of blades, running, pain. Quickly running upstairs, his eyes bulged at the sight that lied before him. The red-skinned giant collapsed on the ground limp, a red-haired girl holding a young, unconscious blonde, as Stain was seen dueling a young, white-haired lass, as her long sword clashed with Stain's dual combat knives, as a German shepherd was barking viciously and attempting to bite him. Dropping his grocery bag, he yelled out. "What the hell is going on here?" 20 minutes ago. As the group made their way into the apartment, which seemed deserted at first, a voice was heard from above them. "I don't recall anyone else living here but me," said a raspy voice, with a menacing tone. "Hey, are you Shigaraki?" asked Russi, unable to detect the source of the voice. "And what if I was?" asked the voice. Then I demand you surrender. We are from the League of Villains, and we are here to take you back. Please do not resist or we will have to use force," she replied nervously. "Villains? You bunch sound more like policemen to me, but look like students, well, except for the red guy. We have you outnumbered, now quit hiding or else," Ian said with authority, looking into the blank. "Or else what?" asked the voice that seemed to be approaching. Suddenly, Aberk felt a movement behind him and rushed to protect the girls. "Look out," yelled Aberk as he was partially able to activate with Gigantism quirk. Just then, he felt a stinging pain run down his back. "Gotcha," said the silhouette, licking the blade. Suddenly, Aberk went limp, unable to move a muscle. "One down." "They got Aberk," yelled Rush in panic. "Come out," yelled Yeung. Suddenly, the silhouette dived down again, with time kicking Veronica in the stomach. She gasped for air as she was sent flying against the wall. Yeung whistled as Jefferson ran in, attempting to bite the assailant. But the dog caught a glare of his face, and what he saw shot his basic instincts to overdrive as the dog ran away, whimpering. Before Yeung could call back her furry friend, a throwing knife came out of the dark as nearly grazed her, leaving a shallow cut on her cheek. Suddenly, like a xenomorph, the figure crawled towards her like a lizard as she tried to swing at it, but it leapt over the swing, about to lick her bleeding cheek. But then, a rock came flying in, causing Stain to back off. "Leave them alone," Russi yelled as she threw another one. Stain dodged the second one easily as Russi ran to help Veronica back up, who had just turned on the lights as she was knocked towards the building's light switch. Stain was about to charge at them, but Yeung drew her blade, forcing Stain to duel Yeung as Russi tried to heal the injured. Suddenly, a voice was heard from next to them. "What the hell is going on here?" Back to present. With Aberk and Veronica incapacitated and Russi was unable to fight, Yeung pulled back, help Aberk up as Russi picked up Veronica as the two made a mad dash towards the windows. "Escaping, huh? Let me help," said Stain as he drop-kicked Yeung, knocking her into Russi as the four of them all fell out the window, splattering onto the pavement as Jefferson ran downstairs in a hint of panic. Shigaraki turned to Stain. "Who the hell were they?" asked Shigaraki. "I dunno, some member from the League of Villains, they were apparently looking for you," replied Stain. "Really now? Izuku must really be underestimating me if this is all he sent," said Shigaraki. Suddenly, footsteps were heard on the roof, followed by a ticking sound. Stain realized what it was as his pupils dilated as he grabbed Shigaraki and jumped out the window on their turn. Suddenly, the roof exploded as four individuals dressed in military uniforms flooded the room from up top. "The hounds have joined the hunt. Looks like we found the target," said Tracker. "Finally, and I thought we were gonna be looking forever," replied Doc. "Alright team, stick to the plan, injure the prey, and pursue until they succumb to fatigue," ordered Alpha. "Got it boss," the three others said valiantly. Back on ground level, Stain took a look at the state of his apartment. "I'll need a new home," he said to himself as he noticed the previous four attackers lying next to them, all alive, miraculously. What's more, it seemed as though the big guy was finally up again. And from the looks of it, he was at least 10 feet taller, with most of his clothes ripped besides his pants. "Yo flathead, you'll pay for what you did to me," he yelled as Russi, Veronica and Yeung back him up. Just then, Webb shot at the two villains as they swiftly back up to the middle of the deserted streets. "Finally, found him," commented Kuro. "We made a good choice following the source of all that racket," commented Araka. Following behind them was a tall, more muscular man with a glowing red arm. "Could you two please tell me when you dash off and leave me behind?" he yelled in a pissed-off tone. Stain looked around, counting the enemies they were facing. 4 up top, 3 to our right and 4 to our left. 11 in total, he said to himself. "So many of them, where do we go?" asked Shigaraki. Suddenly, Stain grabbed Shigaraki and started running towards a narrow alleyway. "Behind," he said as he made a mad dash towards more crowded areas. The villains quickly followed suit. However, Aiberk went in first, and his gigantic body couldn't fit through the alley, causing the people behind him to get stuck. "God damn it, Aiberk. Shrink down," yelled Russie, a tad bit pissed off. "Sorry," Aiberk said, trying to revert back to his original form. Suddenly, a red grappling hook flew past Aiberk as the previously mentioned muscular man, Endu, flung himself over the giant. Endu Tetsaya. Quirk. Constructive cell arm. His arm is a mass of red cells which can form into anything the user wants, given enough concentration. Kuro followed suit, flying past the group on a shadowy platform. Kuro Hikori. Quirk. Shadow control. Allows her to manipulate her own shadow to form into different objects. And soon afterwards, Araka also flung past the shrinking giant. Araka Kumo. Quirk. Spider. Gives him every ability and appearance of a spider. As Endu's team was catching up, Aiberk finally shrunk down as he took pursuit, followed by Russie, Veronica, Yeong and Jefferson. Back with the hounds, while none in the team had any mobility enhancement quirks, they did have access to a multitude of weapons. Moving themselves onto a taller building, they took this opportunity to survey the area, detecting Stain hiding by jamming his knife onto the side of the wall 30 feet above ground. As Endu ran down a bit, he slowed down, noticing that he has lost sight of the two. Suddenly, Shigaraki leapt from above, attempting to grab him. Endu was able to hear the sound of him jumping however, and turned around and extended his right arm at him, but Shigaraki grabbed it as he felt his cells dying rapidly one by one. Screaming in pain, he swung Shigaraki into the wall, forcing him to let go. Turning to him right arm, he saw it decay at a rapid speed. "It's over, I've touched you for long enough, the decay will now spread through your body until you're nothing but dust," he said, getting back up. "You'd like that, wouldn't you? Sadly I ain't kicking the bucket just yet," she said, followed by a pain-filled shriek as he tore off his entire arm, leaving only a smidgen of it left. "Shit, it might take an entire day for that arm to regrow," he said to himself as Shigaraki reached for his face. Suddenly, a kick sent him flying back as Kuro and Kumo showed up. "Are you okay, Endu?" asked he two in unison. "Could have been better, but I'm pretty much out of commission now that my right arm is gone, so take it from here." Suddenly, Stain came down from the roof, slashing at the two swiftly. Kumo, with his spider-like reflexes, was able to completely avoid damage, but Kuro ended up getting a shallow cut. "Not my most successful strike, but I'll take it," Stain said, licking Kuro blood of his blade, making her collapse. Kumo raised his hands up, striking a battle pose. Stain, however, being an experienced fighter, threw 3 throwing knives at him, then charged in. The knives stopped right in front of Kumo, as webs wrapped around them, trapping them in midair. But in doing so, he used up all of his web traps, allowing Stain to run in and lunge at him. Just then, shadow spikes sprouted from the ground, grazing his ankle. Stain winced and looked at Kuro, who was still on the ground. "So she can control her shadow even when paralyzed," he said to himself. Suddenly, from the end of the alleyway, Aiberk, slightly shrunken down, came charging at them like a raging bull. Stain, seeing this, jumped back, along with Shigaraki. But just then, a shadow ramp formed below Aiberk's feet, allowing him to jump upwards and ram the two villains, sending them flying onto the main street. As bystanders shrieked at the sight of Aiberk, panic rang out. People started to run as the rest of the villains regrouped, facing Stain and Shigaraki out in the open. Stain drew his blade and Shigaraki got into a battle stance when he heard sirens in the distance. "The pro heroes will be arriving very soon, it's best if we run," Stain whispered to Shigaraki. "And show our weakness to them? Never," Shigaraki replied, not even trying to hide his voice. "Fine, you're on your own, buddy," replied Stain as he dashed away. Suddenly, a sniper bullet came flying out of nowhere and Stain was forced to jump back. "Never mind, our escape route is sealed, looks like the only way we can win is by forcing through these guys," commented Stain. "Shouldn't be too hard," replied Shigaraki. "In terms of quirks and fighting capabilities, these are small fries at best," said Shigaraki with confidence. "That confidence will get you killed," replied Stain. Suddenly, Aiberk, transforming himself into a 15-foot Hulk, jumped into the air, trying to smash the two. They split up, jumping out of Aiberk's way, but were both flanked. Araka launched his web at Stain, while Kuro sent shadow tendrils at Shigaraki, knowing shadows can't wither. Stain pulled out his combat knife, slicing the webs as they were shot at them, and then charged at Araka. But Russie jumped in front of him. This was for Veronica. She yelled, placing both her palms on Stain's chest. Suddenly, Stain let out a gasp as his body felt like it was thrown against the wall. Yeong took advantage of the situation and swung her blade at him, cutting into his shoulder. "Got him," she cheered, seeing blood drip from his shoulder. Suddenly, Stain grabbed the blade, pulling it out of his shoulder, while giving Yeong a heart-stopping glare, forcing her to back off. He then grabbed the defenseless Russie by the neck, slowly strangling her. "Let go of my friend, you jerk," yelled Veronica, grabbing him by his forearm. Suddenly, the injury on his shoulder started hurting like 1,000 knives were jammed into it, causing Stain to yell in pain, letting Russie go. Meanwhile, Shigaraki swiftly dodged Kuro's shadows, charging right at her. Suddenly, as Kuro was about to attack, she got dragged away by a web as Shigaraki almost got her face. "Saved you," said Araka. Aberk then came running at Shigaraki, swinging his colossal arm at him, pushing him back several feet. "Touched it?" uttered Shigaraki as the foreskin of Aberk's arm cracked and decayed, causing the beast to roar in pain, matching Stain's roar. Suddenly, a black SWAT van came flying out of nowhere, trying to run over the vulnerable Stain. Seeing this, he flung Veronica with all of his might, sending her flying into the van as she coughed out a carpet of blood. Then, pulled out his last throwing knife, throwing it into the van's front wheels. This caused the van to swirl out of control, sending it crashing and tumbling towards Stain, who ran and slid under it, and in a brief slow-mo moment worthy of a Captain America scene, reached into the cracked windshield and pulled out the driver as the van went airborne for a brief moment. The van itself tumbled and crashed into Aberk, who was crushed underneath the 25 tons of metal. Stain looked at the unconscious driver, a well-built buff brute in military uniform, with brown hair underneath a cracked helmet. Then, he heard someone say, "They got rabid, I'm moving out to save him." Followed by a blonde, slender and tall bursting out the crashed van's back door, firing dual M8 handguns at him. Stains was forced to drop the hostage and retreat. Suddenly, a shorter, more well-rounded man in the same uniform snuck up behind him, attempting to stab him with a combat knife. Stain quickly dodged, before realizing that this man had more combat experience than he did, forcing him to jump back, attempting to throw throwing knives at him, but realized that he just threw the last one. "Tracker, don't fail me now," he whispered to himself as another sniper round came flying at them, shattering Stain's sword. "Target disarmed," said a voice coming from Alpha's headgear. "Damn sniper," Stain muttered to himself. Just then, Shigaraki was sent flying at Stain, who caught him midair. "See? I told you were being overconfident," said Shigaraki. "Oh, shut up," he replied, dusting himself off. Suddenly, the van that Stain destroyed started distorting as several meta spikes shot out of it, catching the two by surprise and cutting them up. "Hey guys, am I late to the party?" asked a familiar voice. "Steel," the group called out in unison. "Tetsuya Steel Kinzoku. Work. Metal manipulation. Can manipulate it and transform matter into metal. Can cause headaches, weak bones and potential brain damage if abused." What followed the initial shrapnel barrage was a stream of a red, sticky substance. Blood beam? Stain was confused as though why someone would give him blood, considering his quirk allows him to paralyze those whose blood he licks, but he didn't care. Instead, he tried caught few droplets, allowing him to paralyze the user. Suddenly, a mini explosion happened in his mouth, burning his tongue as he let out a pain-ridden cry. "You fool. My blood is explosive," yelled the assailant, who was still affected and was limp on the ground. Sort of lame of an entrance. Jason Hugden. Quirk. Explosive blood. I think the name speaks for itself. "You'll pay for that," Stain said, coughing up blood. A red blade suddenly appeared, slicing a lampist in half and throwing it at them like a javelin. Shigaraki tried to stop it, but the speed at which it was thrown scraped his hand, but he was still able to successfully disintegrate the lampist. "Hey now, don't forget about me," said Endu, recovering from losing his right arm. "And now we're all here, well, all except for Jack, wonder what he's doing," said Steel. As the hired guns closed in on the two weakened villain fugitives, however, a massive flash of light blinded all of them. Wondering what happened, a sudden realization struck Jason's mind. "It's the pro-heroes," he yelled out before several police cars arrived on the scene, followed by colorfully dressed pro-heroes. "Stop right there, villains. You have no right to cause panic in broad daylight. Stand down now or else," exclaimed a humanoid-looking spider. Kumo Senshi. Hero name: Jet Spider. Quirk: Spider King. Gives him all the abilities of a spider. "What do we do now?" asked Russie as they got surrounded. "We fight," responded Yeong, drawing her blade. Meanwhile, Stain and Shigaraki took this opportunity to escape, but not before a sniper round hit Shigaraki in the left knee, but was not able to slow him down enough. "Damn it, the target's getting away. What do we do, boss?" asked Tracker. "We have bigger problems to worry about, get down here, Tracker, we need all the help we can get," exclaimed Alpha before he got kicked in the face, jamming his headset. Tracker put down his sniper, pulling out his combat shotgun and jumping down from his perch. He took a good look at the hero he was facing. He had messy white hair, piercing yellow eyes and was wearing a black jacket. Ace. Quirk. Pressure. And increase the weight of those around him by 10, but gets a headache while doing it. Meanwhile, Araka took on Kumo in one-on-one combat, their quirks being similar, made it really hard for others to discern who was who. Meanwhile, there was still some of Jason's blood left and a man wearing a mask went up to it, licking it. When Jason noticed him, he slit another artery, squirting his explosive blood at him. Suddenly, the man also returned fired at him, firing the same type of blood, cancelling out each other. Deku Enjuru. Hero name. Vladimir the Crimson. Quirk. Vampirism. Then copy the ability of users whose blood he consumes, also has common vampire weaknesses like garlic, crosses and sunlight. Steel sprouted several metallic pillars, which Aberk then picked up, swinging around like hammers, knocking over some of the intervening policemen. Aberk then threw a few pillars into the air, as Endu caught them with his red arm, sending them smashing down onto his opponents. Suddenly, the same flash of light from earlier happened, as Endu was temporarily blinded, before receiving a kick to the stomach. "Stand down, villain," said a man with messy brown hair, holding scimitars. Xenia Odeon. Hero name. The Conductor. Quirk. Hard light. He can manipulate the photons in a specific area, creating flashes of light and illusions. He threw his 2 scimitars at Endu and used his light quirk to clone his scimitars several times, sending a barrage of scimitars at his opponents. Endu expanded his red arm, blocking both scimitars as the illusions dissipated. He then expanded his arm into a hammer, smashing Xenia, at least what he though was Xenia. "Over here, buddy," Xenia said, behind him, before splitting into multiple of himself. Meanwhile, Yeong and Veronica kept getting hit out of nowhere. Wondering where the hits were coming from, then stood back to back. "That won't help you," said a voice as Yeong was struck in the stomach. "Yeong? Are you okay?" asked Veronica. "I'm fine. Now where is that bastard?" asked Yeong. "Right behind you." Behind the girl suddenly stood a man, randomly eating a hamburger. Yeah, randomly, the one who posted this guy clarified that he just randomly pulls out and eats a hamburger. Anashima. Quirk. Time frame. He can stop time for 5 seconds. Should he go over, he get a bad case of dia. Back with Kuro and Russie, she seems to have her hands just as full. "Can you keep up, Ezra?" asked a young lad to another. "Tatsumaki Ryama. Quirk. DDI. Anything he throws are guaranteed to hit their mark. And I was about to ask you the same. Ezra Hammett. Quirk. Healing factor. He can regenerate himself for minor wounds. A sniper and a regenerator versus an assassin and a healer. Odd matchup," said Kuro, swiping at Ezra, who heals from every wound he gets. "Yeah, tell me about it," answered Russie, healing every wound she gets. To recap, so far it's Kumo vs Araka. Veronica and Yeong vs Anashima. Endu, Steel and Aberk vs Xenia. Jason vs Vladimir Crimson. The Hounds vs Ace. And Kuro and Russie vs Ezra and Tatsumi. Kumo vs Araka. Kumo lunged his spider legs at Araka, but they were stopped by a web trap that Araka set up earlier. As Kumo struggled with the web, Araka lunged at him, trying to bite him. Kumo jumped back, while spitting some webs of his own on the floor beneath where Araka was gonna land. Pulling with his enhanced strength, he ripped off the chunk of the road Araka was standing on, flinging him into a building. As the smoke cleared, he saw Araka emerging from the smoke as he started to rip off glass panes from the building he was climbing, raining them down on his enemy. Upon seeing this, Kumo gathered most of his fluid, stretching across the 2 buildings on opposite sides of the street and creating a giant net, catching all the falling glass. Kumo then climbed up to the side of a building, catching up with Araka, who immediately flung 2 glass panes at him as soon as he got over the net ceiling he created. Araka then ran across the giant web, jumping on caught glass panes to not get stuck towards where he hit Kumo. But as the smoke cleared, he saw that Kumo wasn't there. Then, he noticed two pieces of web stretched out to their very limit and looked down to its source. Kumo creating a giant slingshot with what web he had left. He then flung himself like a catapult, launching him into Araka, knocking him into the air. And then, with all of his strength, he smashed him downwards. Araka, however, wasn't knocked unconscious and launched his webbing to either side of the building, catapulting him back upwards. He even went over and above Kumo. Suddenly, he shot his web at him, latching onto both his shoulders, and flung him into his own net, causing it to snap and launching Kumo's trapped body into the ground, making a gigantic splat. Araka then fell back down, landing with perfect accuracy. He took a look behind him. Kumo was knocked out. Kumo vs Araka. Winner. Araka. Veronica and Yeong vs Enoshima. I got him, yelled Yeong as she swung at Enoshima but missed and got hit 3 times in the stomach instead. He's here, exclaimed Veronica but also missed. Enoshima looked down upon the two, always warping around with his time stop. Ha! Small fries like you will never hit me, he exclaimed. No, but you must have a weakness and I will find a way to exploit it, said Yeong as she swung at him but missed again. Ha! Try again, he said, barraging Yeong. Yeong? Cried Veronica in panic. Don't worry, I'm counting, she replied as she was getting beat. Counting? Asked Veronica. As Enoshima barraged her from all sides, she counted down how long he was stopping time. Suddenly, her eyes flashed as she then took off her shirt right as she tried to hit Enoshima another time. Yeong? What are you doing? Asked Veronica, embarrassed to see her strip. Suddenly, Enoshima appeared 4 foot away from Yeong, clutching her stomach. Be damn. I got too distracted by her body to realize my limit was up, he said. You used your body to distract him, Veronica asked. Yeah, it was the only option. Now, since he's in pain, use your quirk on him, Yeong said, putting her clothes back on. Right. Enoshima, slumped over, looked at her with fearful eyes. What are you gonna do? Veronica and Yeong vs Enoshima. Winner by bloody diarrhea. Veronica and Yeong. Author's note. I would write the other fights, but I'm just too tired, sorry. Suddenly, from the sky, a muscular man came flying down. The crowd cheered and the villains shuddered, hearing the call of his name. All Might. Don't worry citizens, said All Might with confidence, for I am here. Rabbit clenched his fist. Don't worry guys, we can take him, right? He asked Alpha. Alpha shook his head. I believe not, he's beyond our abilities, he said blankly. The hounds. Members. Alpha, Tracker, Rabbit and Doc. Alpha's quirk. Heartless. He can dull his emotions, being able to fight without morale or fear restraining him. Tracker's quirk. Manhunt. He can discern his target easily from large crowds, easily finding target. Rabbit's quirk. Berserk. He can supercharge his body with adrenaline, boosting physical capacities to superhuman levels. Doc's quirk. Blood density manipulation. She can densify blood to quickly close wounds or thin them down to clear clogged arteries and veins. Rabbit growled as Alpha sounded the hound's retreat signal. But the heroes were too overwhelming and everyone was struggling to keep up. Suddenly, all of the heroes froze in fear as the sky turned blood red, cracking open as eyes peeked through. The buildings were shifting as some civilians passed out from fear. Even the villains were shaking. Alpha, however, unable to feel fear due to his quirk, smiled as he saw the man causing this. Jack Deathringer. Quirk. Nightmare. Whenever he locks eyes with an individual, he can make them see their worst nightmares. He can also create a giant illusion, but passes out afterwards. Your lifeline's here. Now run. I can't keep this illusion lasting for much longer, he yelled out. As Alpha snapped his allies out of the illusion, the villains made a mad dash away from the battlefield. Suddenly, a portal opened. Yeong, recognizing the quirk, jumped through. Seeing how her best friend jumped through, Jefferson followed. Veronica was the next to go, followed by Russie, the hounds, one by one, then Araka, still ecstatic for beating a pro hero, then Steel, and Jason was after. Kuro and Endu followed, and Aberk was last, carrying Jack's unconscious body. As the illusion wore off, the heroes had noticed that the villains had escaped. Bang! He almost had them, exclaimed Xenia. All Might patted his shoulder. Don't worry about the villains, focus of tending to the wounded, he said. All Might had a point. The initial goal was to retrieve Shigaraki. But due to the presence of Stain and the strict conditions, the 14 hired villains ended up fighting 7 pro heroes, along with 35 SWAT team units and All Might. In the end, the group was able to incapacitate 2 pro heroes, hold off 5, take out 28 cops, killing 9 of them, and completely destroying an entire city block where it seemed a war zone just happened. Overall, most of the hired villains were fine. Aberk had a few fractured bones from the van hitting him, and a few cuts against Stain. Veronica and Yeong suffered some mild bruises. While fighting Stain and Enoshima, Jack was still passed out. Rabbit has a few bruises and cuts from the car crash. Araka was also mildly battered and exhausted from his fight with Kumo. Everyone else seemed relatively fine. Back at the hideout, the villains waited anxiously for Izuku, knowing that he would be mad for failing him. As Izuku came out, however, he seemed more sorry than mad. "We're sorry, boss, for failing you," Yeong said with tears streaming down her face. Izuku looked up to her. "No, I'm the one who should be apologizing," he said, surprising half the group. Was about time," commented Steel. "You apologize, but why?" asked Russie. Izuku sighed. "Because I got too naive. I didn't think things through. I sent all of you people, who don't even know each other, against one target, with a condition that would have guaranteed you to betray each other, along with providing you with lackluster information, and not accounting for Stain. Truly, I sent you all on a wild goose hunt, and I apologize," he explained. "So, do we all get the job?" asked Kuro. "No, I still only need 3 people, PS, the hounds count as 1. replied Izuku. "Then who are you gonna pick?" asked Endu. Izuku smiled. Now that will be unfortunately all for today's video, but do not worry, more will be coming soon for you to enjoy. Golden Fanfics out.